That's
Oh shit, dude! I don't think I've ever been on a panel with you, 2B, but I've always wanted to tell you, you look like XXS Tentacion in a compliment way. In a compliment way. All right, don't take it like that. Come on, come on. It's not every
All
day
good.
look like a celebrity. It's weird to say that because the person's gone, but like a celebrity, yeah.
Funny. No, it's all good.
Damn, yo, you're a cold person, bro. You're not even gonna say
appreciate.
something nice back. You just you're just gonna be like,
Mhm.
yeah, I guess I
Mhm.
do.
Uh, you look like Thundercat.
I take
Mhm.
that back. You're a hideous person. You
No, the
just
musician. The musician, not
okay, okay. I mean, okay, okay.
Mhm.
Right.
Uh,
Yo, so I got an interesting topic. I got a topic that I've been sitting on for a really long time. I
okay.
tried to get it used in a panel in the past, and like not here, and
Okay.
then it was ignored. It's an
Okay.
excellent topic. It's like all right. So I had read earlier about something that had to do with like the UN and human rights.
Okay.
So basically, it was like the UN has like a high commissioner for human rights who was making statements about like having guidelines for AI technology
Oh,
and like surveillance. What's up? And surveillance technology and
Mm.
facial scans and recognition software, and trying to make a stance that it's like against human rights, like it comes in conflict with human rights. And this is really interesting because like if you look at this, like it's almost like these global representatives often take these stances of like widening what's considered like human rights and utilize them to come after like the global south and come after specific countries and be like, you guys are doing something to your people, or you guys are using this stuff and it's harming your people. But at the same time, we've talked about AI technology and like facial recognition software in on the all black panel and stuff plenty of times, and it really does seem like it's like this evil future. It's this thing that's like obviously coming. It's obviously like going to be utilized. It brings a lot of rewards, but there are these problems that you'll see along the way. So it's kind of interesting that the UN is taking a stance of like we should have international guidelines if we're going to utilize like um, facial recognition software, and if you're going to use it in your states, or else it's against human rights.
So before we continue on with this, uh, Leah wants me to tell you that you're pretty. So wiggle. You're a pretty
Me,
person. Yeah, yeah, you. She said you're pretty.
I want to tell Leia that you're rich, and so that does like both things. Like I don't know what you look like, but inherently you're pretty because you're rich, and that's how I work.
What? You're so you think? Okay, all right, I'll leave that alone. Anyway,
you can afford all the good skincare products, man.
oh, fuck. All right. Well,
Yeah.
I message. There's a message, Leah. Okay. But anyway, so I guess we're talking about AI, and I think that's actually an interesting topic. But thank you, 2B, for stopping by. Thank you, Azzy, for coming through again. Right, and you keep changing up your angles. Like, what is this? Like, do you notice this? Like, he does this all the time. He's got like three fucking
As he always
cameras.
try to keep you on his toe, on your
Yeah.
toes.
See, man, I need to put that on t-shirts, man. Like that's how I gotta make money, man. Like fuck this Twitch
Put that
shit.
on a put me on a t-shirt. Give me 15%. Oh, you listen. Let's become billionaires, Prime.
This man is doing this modeling moves in here, man. Like I love it. But thank you, Azzy. Topped off in his back because he doesn't know better.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm here, but apparently I wanted to suffer again.
Came to redeem himself.
And
Came to
next,
bully his bullies.
and then we have Wiggle with us. Thank you, Wiggle, for the kindness. All right. So yeah, we're talking about AI. Sure. All right. So should we have rules to regulate AI? Or is that what you're saying? Basically.
Yeah, so it's kind of like the idea that the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights was saying that like there's an unprecedented level of surveillance across the globe by state and private actors, and it's trying to say that this is somehow like comes in conflict with like human rights. And so therefore like in the future we need to see it as a global problem, and we should establish some sort of guidelines. You've probably heard about this similarly with like hacking or like tax havens and stuff. You see like the global community come together and say we need to do something all as a group because this is something that's a detriment to like all of our different countries. But it's interesting that they're seeing this as like a human rights problem, because it's like it's interesting to see like where you see like surveillance and you see all of this stuff like facial recognition. Like for instance, I think like people were saying this is utilized highly in like China and stuff, and that seems to be like an enemy of like the United States and like the Western world at this point. And it seems like and like widening the scope of what's human rights so that you can come after like specific emerging economies and specific countries and say you guys are committing crimes against their people. This is an example. And it's interesting. It seems like in the West, specifically the U.S., we do this a lot. We say that there's like a problem with human rights, and then we use that as a reasoning to like come in a country. But as we've talked on these panels before, there does seem to be true problems with like facial recognition software, etc. For people that are like darker skinned or what have you. There seems to be mistakes. It is a really complicated topic. We talk about how it is the future. It is something that's unavoidable. But like, how are we going to implement this, and what are we going to do? And now it seems like the largest players in the world are starting to like address this and try to like come up with solutions.
Okay. And thank you. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Ozzy.
See, I think the social credit system is that what you were referring to, Wiggle, in China? Or
There
were you
is,
talking
like,
about where they use the facial recognition to like catch criminals or like or catch or identify people in like an airport or something?
in general, like I'm not a huge like um uh I don't understand like much of what's going on in many areas of China. I just brought them up as an example because I do know they're using facial recognition software, because I saw like I saw this long form video about like the Xinjiang stuff that was happening. Um and they showcased how they were using it. And that's what I was like that's what I saw, and I was like, damn, they're exporting this, they're trying to put this in other countries. And then I noticed that it's interesting that the UN is taking this stance, but it's like, that's basically like what I was thinking. I'm sure facial recognition software would be something that'd be highly utilized if it's cheap enough for like probably despots or like specific leaders of like authoritarian regimes, or the word that people are using now is like autocratic rulers. Because if you think about it, if you can't trust your people and you feel like you can get assassinated at any time, facial recognition software, like massive infrastructure put into that, is going to help you, right? It's going to help you stay in power.
Wait, how we get the facial recognition software? Must have missed the.
Yeah.
How do we get to, or how do we get facial?
No, how do we get to?
Because AI is like one of the things that is that's one of the things that AI is used for.
Oh, we were talking about AI.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys,
know
you
you're-
guys did not come in here when I said to come in here. And so I was here, and I was like, all right, I've got to come up with a topic. And so I came up with the topic. Don't blame me. You had the ability to come in here and talk about
Hey,
school shit.
Bam didn't have firms, okay?
Yes,
Yeah,
I came in here and talked about your school shit. If you want to, you can talk about school shit. It's
No,
just-
I mean AI is cool. I just didn't know. I didn't know the combo. I was like,
Facial
no,
facial
AI is the
recognition-
answer.
Facial recognition is here, and it's here to stay. Like your smartphones use it, your webcams use it. Google already has access to your face. If you guys have like Google Images and you've been storing all like, the loads of selfies that you don't use on your Google Drive, Google already has your face. Like Twitch uses it if you're partnered and they use your face to promote their minority creators. Everyone has access to your face already.
yeah.
So
Why do
I
people
really don't-
pretend? Like, why do people pretend they care about hiding their
Wiggles not-
identity?
Yeah, Wiggle's not scared. He's just
What about my rights?
He doesn't want his RuneScape account to get hacked.
No, for me it's this idea that like it happened, like you're from New Jersey. It happened in New Jersey, man. Like there was a guy
did.
that wasn't even in a specific area. He's never even been there in his life, and he got arrested for a crime that he didn't commit because of like facial recognition software. It happens.
Well, yeah, there's gonna be flaws where it's the facial recognition is where the problem with the facial recognition is it's like it muddles everyone's faces. It's like you can be mistaken for somebody else, especially with similar features. And then it's even worse in China, where it's like if you do or go certain places, your your social credit score goes down, and you then your trajectory in life is like you can't do anything. But for me, it's just like for me on the bright side is like you like we have credit card hackers and the life hackers in America. Like I can just hack my social credit credit score and just like go to the library all day and do good works and be a good Christian and I'll
yeah,
have
but
a
like
good,
that protects you. So then what about
yeah,
like
it protects
countries?
me.
What
Yeah,
about countries? Like what about if there's like a country? Like I think the bigger problem that led to the UN thing was that in specifically Israel there was a private like company that created the software that they were utilizing to like look into journalists' emails and hack people's emails, etc., and get all this information that they were utilizing for their own advantage. And so it's like what happens? Like what happens if in the United States there's a private company that like develops some software, finds a way to use like spyware to get this information or what have you.
that stuff already exists.
That exists, but like do you think there should be more guidelines? Do you think like it's widening, or should we just accept it? We should roll over and say this is okay. And
No,
then this is the other part. It may
Uh,
already happen, but what happens when the Western world decides that this is wrong and we allow it to happen in America? We allow it to happen in New Jersey and New York. We allow it to happen in other Western countries, all the United States. But then all of a sudden, like we say, this is wrong that you're doing this in a specific country, let's say in the Middle East, or a specific country in like Asia. We say when you do it, you're an autocrat. You're harming your people, and now we have to take action against you.
So I think
We have to put
um,
sanctions.
I think the interesting part of this is, um, like, and I think it's like bigotry that gets baked into these things, right? That's where these conversations I think are most useful. I mean, that's when people are say they're scared about facial recognition, right? One, it's law enforcement, but two, it's like, oh well, law enforcement using it in a bigoted fashion, right? Um, and so, like using one facial recognition not even working properly, right? So on dark skinned people, that's a thing, right? We know about this. That like scanning a person's face, it'll more likely
it's too
fail.
dark.
Yeah. It'll more likely fail on dark skinned individuals, right? I mean, you see that in fucking consumer electronics, right? Where there's a camera, it's supposed to like pick out the faces in like a shot. It doesn't, like for black people, like that's the thing that happens, right? And so then you get false positives and whatnot. But then it's also just giving law enforcement more tools to surveil. And AI, all it does is it magnifies like the truths that our society already believes in, right? Like it does. Like I think there's a lot of like AI futurism, right? Like this is going to save the world. This is why I wish Jishi was here, because he loves fucking Elon Musk, and I'm gonna shit all over him. But like that that feeling or that thought that technology will save us all, and but all it does it magnifies what's already there, right? It's built upon our laws, our morals, right? And it works off of that, and it'll arrive at the logical conclusions from there. So it's like when they train software to like facial recognition software to recognize like uh like criminals, right? And they give it like a database that's full of black people. Well, then it'll think black people are criminals, right? Like it'll like point them out as criminals because that's what the data you've given it. Like it's simple things like that. That's always I think that's like grasp with the most. Yeah, I don't know.
yeah, I think what a really big part of it, and there's like I think you're pointing to it like a really big thing, which is like a lot of times with dealing with AI, there's not a lot of regulations, but there's also not a lot of there's that well, it's very new, and we don't have a lot of ways to make sure that like the information we feed AI isn't necessarily subject to like our own biases that we already have. And another thing is just what Wiggle was kind of talking about, I think, was like almost like a data security. Because like the thing that AI is really really good at is that right now with the internet and stuff like that, there's more data out there than there ever been before, and AI allows us to like sort that data like in very fast and efficient manners. Um, and that can be really really cool. It can help you do, like us do really really cool things. But it can also be used by companies like Facebook to find out like the color of the sweater that your grandma bought for her dog 7 years ago, right? Like it can also be really creepy and really disgusting. And I think that like it's it's really important that we get into people's minds and get into like, government policy like rules on like what we can't what like private companies and the government can and cannot do with people's like information. Because like right now if you sign up for Facebook and you log in, like you basically give Mark Zuckerberg and all his people free access to like tons and tons of information, all of the activities that you do, if you have it on your phone, all the places you've been, and that information, if it falls into the wrong hands or even in the hands of the people who intend it, if they misuse it, could be used to harm individuals at like very very strong length. And with the advent of AI, the kind of like Prime was getting to, if that information is used in a way that's supposed to be intended, but we have like by our biases that the AI that we haven't filtered out of the AI, like you talked about like the criminal thing full of black faces or whatever, then necessarily the AI couldn't necessarily have a lot of unintended outcomes that are like I guess the word you would use is bigoted, but I would just say unfair. But yeah, either is true.
I think that AI could do some good things in terms of being able to create like porn playlists and shit.
Of
Like,
course you would say.
I mean, I think that could be a plus. Like, it could pick up on your natural like uh, tendencies and things you like, and like generate a very good playlist for you. Outside of that, I think the idea of AI and where we're going with it is a little bit frightening. I think that too much control and manipulation of people's data, especially when it's consolidated into so few hands, can easily become a corruptible situation that could be very damaging if somebody, say, wanted a specific individual to be damaged. We talked earlier about the social credit system in China briefly. And I think that this would be a prime example of why AI could be very frightening to some, because if you talk about identity theft, what if they could just take like your image and create some kind of fucking means by which that gets transposed for things like your facial recognition software and stuff like that. And again, we talked before about it already defaulting, but let's talk about the malicious intent that could come of that as well. I mean, there's a lot of ground to cover there. So well, I came in with the meme. The other side to it is that truthfully, there could be some serious security consequences for all of us as a result of that. And depending on how good a hacker could be, they could really fucking destroy your life, like more so than they can now. That the idea
Yeah.
frightens me.
Yeah, but that was always the case, and a lot of these network security, cyber security, they're hackers. Like they built the technology, and now they're just building countermeasures to yeah, a lot of these people who like there was this what's this guy? He worked for Facebook, and he was talking about like the dangers of social media and the technology behind it, and now he's like actively working against it. Like the point I'm getting to is like a lot of this, the fears and the dangers. Like number one, the social credit system in China, from what I learned in the Wicked Supreme chat, like it's not working out. Like people aren't, it requires a lot of like compliance from society, to work along with the system. And then it requires government and officials to make sure this stuff works as well. Like, for instance, there was like a scenario where people were like, they have to recycle properly, and like if they don't, their social credit will go up or down. But the government systems aren't enforcing it, and they aren't, they, when the stuff hits the recycling, I'm losing my words.
What about with the contact tracing? Wouldn't that be like positive?
Contact tracing. But that was so hard to maintain too. Anyway, because like New York had a Bluetooth system. Like if somebody got vaccinated and they were registered in the system, and your phone had, like, if you had to download an app, and then if you came in contact with somebody, it was via Bluetooth. It was so hard. It didn't
They'd want to
work.
have a gun registry, and they'd want to have everybody who
Yeah,
has a gun.
and all people had to do was turn their Bluetooth off, and they were fine.
But this is like
literally,
we're
the real problem is AI is the involuntary.
You think you're thinking about it from like the perspective of like a government on its own people, but it's like what was happening is like this specific company had created like a software that was able to like hack people's like devices by just sending them like a message they didn't even have to open, and it was just like a no click hack like they could do to anybody. And they were looking at like journalists, because what would happen is they would sell this like technology to governments, and then the government would like, it was marketed as like, you're going to use this for your people, you're going to use this so that you can stop crime, etc. And some of these governments were using it against journalists. Like I think Jamal Khashoggi's wife, after, even before his death and after, was getting like spied on. Her messages were getting read, and they were using this to target families and people and read what they're looking at and see all of this. And it's kind of interesting because it's like this kind of technology is coming out of like the most advanced countries and then being exported to anyone who's the highest bidder, because that's how they make their money. And so you got to think about it, like, do you want to have like measures of control? And then if you do have measures of control, is that overstepping? Is that some form of like xenophobia? If you were to say like one of the countries that bought this stuff was like I think Saudi Arabia, like would it be like overstepping to be like, Saudi Arabia, you are now using, like, you have this technology, we don't trust you, you have a history of breaking these rules, etc. But then if you come after Saudi Arabia, is that somehow overstepping? Is this now saying, all right, it's the boot of the Western countries that do this all the time that are now coming on this other country? It like brings about these hard, complicated questions. It's like, where would you stand?
I don't think it's that complicated, because of the fact that you're talking about your own country's like technology. So if you want to sell that to a Saudi prince, that's totally fine. But that doesn't mean that you don't have to. And if you have like multilateral agreements around like companies that, or around like not companies, but around countries that are basically saying like, well, we don't sell that kind of technology to those kind of people, right? It doesn't mean that. And
yeah, would you be okay with us selling nukes to whatever country wanted?
No, because you have like
so then what's the
multilateral
difference?
agreements.
What's the difference here?
Is the nuke the problem?
Because your terminology is like the same that you would utilize.
Wait, are you equating nukes to AI?
No, I'm saying that he's saying that in this system, like, what's the problem with selling something that you create? It's like, if there's a multilateral or like a bilateral agreement between a country and another country, what's the problem? Like, why would you say like, I wouldn't give this to a specific country as long as there's profit and both sides in this voluntary exchange
So
are happy?
the thing is,
But then what about like the rest of the world? Or like, what about the people in a country? Like, what happens if like you sell something to another country and then the country utilizes this on their own people? Why would you not think of like a measure? Like, wouldn't you think you wouldn't hold the same stance if you're talking about nuclear arms? I could say the United States, let's say tomorrow, decides like, you know what, fuck it, like we'll sell nuclear weapons because we can make so much profit off of it and help ourselves.
Then we
sell it to a country that's right next to your country. And then what are you going to say then? Are you going to say the same thing? Well, it's just an agreement between these countries. Like, why are you going to be xenophobic about it? Like, it's just an agreement. There's damage that can be caused by selling something that is damaging inherently. That's why it's damaging. So it's like it's more nuanced than just saying like there's nothing to it.
I think the disconnect here is a little bit is that like these things aren't necessarily being developed by the government and sold by the government. Like a private company in the United States could create like a hack or like a malware program, right? And maybe they sell it to other governments around the world, saying, "Hey, you can use this as surveillance for your people." But then other governments can necessarily go and use this as a weapon to like surveil people in other countries, to get information on other countries' people, and it's like, well, do we stop talking to people who have access to this, or stop like doing deals with them? Like it could get really like xenophobic and scary, or like very like
and
in an awkward area.
Literally, AI can be composed by anybody who has a significant amount of time to themselves and understand how any coding language. Because AI is just a bunch of code. Anybody can create an AI. So it's not that.
So have you heard about Fin7?
No, explain this.
So Fin7 is the biggest ransomware company in the world. Company, I said. They are legitimizing themselves as a ransomware company. They're going so far as to posting job applications or like job postings straight up on like mainstream websites in Ukraine and Russia. Like, and their aim is to create ransomware to hostily take over people's computer networks to force them into fucking like paying a ransom. Okay? These are the types of organizations I worry about getting a hold of AI. They have developed a massive amount of resource. They have developed talent. They're actually scouting for talent in the commercial job pool. They're not even hiding behind like the dark web. They're out in the public. This was a New York Times article, by the way. This isn't some like fucking weird conspiracy shit. This is straight up. You can look it up yourself.
No, you're right.
But
I'm pretty sure the government.
But you know that's the fear. People. That's the fear around that shit. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's why be afraid. The reason you get so much network security is because those very same hackers who create all that ransomware is the very ones who are probably working on the security to defend against it because they understand the problem.
You understand? Like we've had major energy companies hacked recently with ransomware, right? Like major energy companies.
So
like this is happening right now, and that's my fear is like go ahead, whatever the major energy companies, right? They're probably fucking deserve to be hacked in some way or another because they're
Jason,
they're bad for the environment, you know, and shit like that. You could go on that shit. Maybe they're doing the activist work, but I don't think that, you know.
Jason,
and I worry about what the impact is for individuals who maybe get caught in the crossfire or somehow end up on somebody's bad side and end up being, you know, fucking screwed because of this shit. Like that's my issue.
What are we supposed to do? Like,
I want to ask a question. I want to ask Jason. Like, basically, like, you're talking about Ukraine and Russia. Like, these countries have like a different kind of regulation when it comes to like these.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying.
So you're appealing to these companies as saying that they are around the world, like basically like having the same like type of regulations that they have within the US and the EU or whatever. So
I'm not indicating anything about what the regulations. Hey, hang on, Chinchilla. Because you're misreading what I'm saying.
I don't think that
the ads were posted. You could say that they have the same regulations, but the ads were posted there.
The same level when it comes to the US and the EU, and even like fucking China. I don't think that's the same. Like malware is not the same type of regulated as like the EU and the US. When it comes to malware, so maybe like within Ukraine, maybe within like Russia, these regulations are quite loose, and you can like build a company build around like malware. I don't know that, but maybe that doesn't account for like our countries that we are living in, and I think that's a distinction, right? I think that's a really interesting distinction that you
so if you acknowledge that distinction, then like you would also like what happens if the country that has like more regulation or what have you, then just like is not where people are buying the products from. Like what if I want to buy some really good malware or like ransomware and then I just go to the country that's less regulated and then I buy it from the company from that country and now I have it and I legally have it but I have access to it. Or
So
like
we're gonna
what happens when
use
a government you gets it. A government makes the law. Like what happens if there is an autocracy out there where like there is a supreme ruler or someone who can make these purchases for their government and says we'll buy this from your unregulated country and we'll take this. Do you believe there should be like a global measure of action? And then if you did agree, how
Yes.
would you ensure like equity amongst all nations? How can you ensure that the West won't use this to cripple like third world or like the global South in countries that are using facial recognition in a positive way?
So
like
you're talking
what the
about
U.S. did to
equity,
Haiti
right?
without AI.
What'd you say?
So like what the U.S. did to Haiti without AI.
Explain.
Like literally, we supplant and we literally just like we will ruin other countries, and we've been doing it before
Yeah.
AI existed.
Yeah.
AI just
Yes.
makes it more convenient, and it just
Yeah, but like take this for example, like the United States spends how much on like our military and spends how much on our intelligence. What happens if there's a country that just buys this? Like a country
buys
that
buys
buys a
what
service. Like what happens if there's like think about it. I'm a
they
for
contract
profit
our
business.
military.
No, no, not us, not the United States. Let's say
Okay,
there's a country out there that has enough wealth because they have enough GDP, and then they say, all right, we're going to allocate some of our money, our tax money or what have you, and then we're going to look for like a country that's less regulated that has one of these like ransomware companies that perhaps Jason's talking about, and they say, we're just going to buy this, and then we'll have this, and let's use it against other countries that are less regulated. And now we have something that we can utilize on them or even beyond that. Like what actually happened is that they use this on journalists. They take this and they say, you know what, we will stop crime in our country, but now what we'll also do is we'll also look at journalists phones and we'll see what they're reporting about our country. And that's what they were doing. And it's kind of like
Politicians'
yeah.
but you
phones.
can't
Pico,
crack down on that. It's like a police officer saying, I can't stop you from doing a crime before you do it. They're gonna arrest you
So,
when you do
so
the
should we
crime.
not try? Should we allow
You
like
should we
should we
not?
allow
Should a police officer? Is this total recall? Like, should we arrest you before you commit the
no, I'm
crime?
saying
This is what this.
Am
the
I-
I've been wanting
it's
to say
about
that for a
it's
long
I
about
time.
thought that was the Minority Report.
it's
Oh,
about the idea of
one of
like
them movies, man.
are you if you're for some
Total
form of
Recall was
like
cool as fuck though too. Like shout out to the OG with Arnold Schwarzenegger. That one was great.
Like
if you
you're advocating for stopping a crime before it happens, and that's good and dandy. But
no, I'm advocating for like I'm honestly I don't know which side. That's why I'm devil's advocating it's because it's a good topic. If I knew my side, I wouldn't really that's kind of weird to give a topic when you already have like a side. But the idea of it is that like if you believe in some form of like regulation globally and that we should all take action to do something, like if you believe in like climate change is bad, we should all take action against climate change. Like genocide is bad, we should all take action against genocide. If you believe in these things that like liberal democracies like tend to believe in, like you should care about like human rights. And then this is one of those things where like human rights can come into conflict and like the UN stepping up and their high commissioner is saying like this is coming in conflict with human rights and
but
there should be
it's our
regulation. Would
yeah.
you agree or would you
All that is arbitrary if it's not a zero sum. 100, you get 100%. Compliance and participation. Like I said, that the social credit in China isn't working because it's not working on both ends. The government isn't enforcing it, and the people don't care. A lot of them don't care. You ask somebody in the countryside, whatever. Like a lot of this require. I mean, some people care, but it's a big thing.
I'm gonna let some other
But-
people in. So finish your point. Finish your point, Ashley, and then I'll let some other people in.
Yeah, like unless you can get 100% compliance on participation globally to say, hey, the incentive for buying ransomware and increasing your position, you know, just by like hacking and taking over other countries. Like this is like the worst case scenario that I can think of. Like you hack and take over another country. Unless you can get everyone on board, it doesn't matter. All you can do is just like put in, like if somebody does this, we find them, or like we don't do trade with them. We put on tariffs, and affect their economy somehow. You know, that's all I can like foresee happening.
Okay.
I mean, there's
okay. You topped off. You can go, and then I want to let in like 2B, and a newest individual, Zach something Pope, and then yeah, go ahead. But go ahead, and also here. So 2B. Sorry, excuse me. Sorry. Topped off. Go ahead first.
Yeah, so what we're kind of talking about here is like cybersecurity, right? Like necessarily the only thing, like the only solution to this isn't necessarily like multilateral trade agreements or like the UN taking care of it. So like we know the countries, like the United States being one of the bigger ones, where these types of things are being developed, right? And we could regulate like the sale of these things. We could regulate who's allowed to develop them. We could also increase our national cybersecurity, which is pretty abysmal right now. I don't know why we have a space force. We should have a cyber force. And a lot of this stuff is like very, very, very important into keeping like data and stuff like that safe, and also keeping malicious attackers out of like networks and stuff like that. Because like it is very scary. I can't speak too much to this because like I work at one of these places, but there were like really big energy companies who have been hit by like lots of massive malware attacks. And like, while as far as I'm concerned, like no one's power has been fucked up with yet. Like potentially, if we don't like crack down on this and we don't improve like security measures, like someone in like a country that has like interest against the United States, right, could necessarily come in and like just turn off everybody's power. And like just saying that like, oh well, we can't like get 100% participation, so like this isn't going to happen, is just very, very silly. There's lots of ways that you can regulate things without everybody participating.
All right, so the topic we're talking about is cybersecurity, or I thought it was about facial recognition software. I'm sorry, I'm like focused on something else right now.
Oh, my bad. I posted it in the panel topics.
We need cybersecurity against facial recognition malware.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's basically like okay. This can go in lots of different directions, but talking about the policy implications of AI and facial recognition software.
Yeah, I don't really have any. That's like, first of all, that's like above my pay grade. That level of science, I'm not, at least technological science like that, like
You don't
IT
need to worry
stuff, or
about the science. Ignore the science. Just the part's unimportant, right? The point is the capabilities that facial recognition AI can give, right? And that like use, for instance, in the hands of law enforcement, right? Given to governments. Like we can see Facebook and their algorithms and their AI, how that has been used against others, right? And like the destructive consequences it's wrought. Right? You can see like facial recognition in like airports and like false positives on individuals, like and saying, oh, this is a fucking terrorist. There's all that exists, right? So you don't have to know the science.
I mean, to me, all that really seems like an argument for is either you need to have a wider data set that you're using to come up with these algorithms for facial recognition, or because your current data set is heavily biased towards more accurate facial recognition of people who are lighter skinned. And that could be a problem with literally like um, the way that we design lenses or the way that buildings are lit or whatever. Like black people are just incompatible with this kind of visualization software. So if that's the case, then we need to just stop appealing to that for doing things like finding criminals, or we need to strongly modify it. Outside of that, I don't know what else you could really do with it as far as like your rights being perturbed because it's like a privacy violation. I think people are living in a fantasy world if they think that in lots of other ways your rights are not being violated, in lots of other ways that you're not documenting your presence online, in lots of other ways you're not giving your private information to companies or anything like that. I think that ship has already sailed. But as far as using the software for identifying criminals or things like that, like, yeah, I mean, obviously, I think right now there's been plenty of articles written about like how the software is biased, how um, we need to either modify the algorithm or abandon that technology because it's just not the limitations of the technology cannot be overcome by expanding the data set or changing the particular algorithm you're applying or applying artificial intelligence based methods like neural networks or things like that. Like it's just
So,
not.
okay, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Tell them no.
Yeah. So,
Go
no.
ahead. No, I just go ahead.
So imagine that the facial recognition was like totally like perfect. So you had like every kind of criminal that you could detect. Would you want that to have? Do you want to have like every criminal to be detected anywhere whatsoever or on certain type of places? Do you want to have it like everywhere detected by cameras and that kind of stuff? Like basically, I crossed the road and like, or well, that's like super minor. But it, at what degree do you think that you basically like you cross the line of like having privacy, right?
For criminals.
Yeah. Like, when do you
um
think you're like a proper criminal to be detected on a camera with your face? If the face recognition was like perfect.
Why just stop at criminals?
well, no, I mean, for regular people, I don't think there's I mean, if you're in your house or something, then I don't think there's a reason for the software to be in your
Not in your
house or whatever.
house.
I don't think there's
Not
a
in
I
your
mean,
house.
yeah, if it's like
No,
if
you're
the
not. You're
technology
not safe.
if the tech
That's just facial recognition software. Like the for example, the hack that the Pegasus company had done, or not Pegasus. Pegasus was the software that they used. This Israeli company did. Um, it was a zero-click hack in which they would send an iMessage to your phone, and you didn't even have to click anything. And
Hmm.
journalists were getting hacked, and they were just looking at your phone. And some of these hacks were as early as like 2018, and like even earlier. Those are just the ones they found, and as late as like this June, like last June, and they were like, this software was used to literally get into people's phones, like iPhone 12s, iPhone 13s, the phones that people are saying like this is the standard at the
Sounds like
time. They're
Apple's the
like, this
problem.
is the and like it's like it's not just face. It's not like just like all right, I can look at your face. That makes sense. There are problems with facial recognition that way, like you're describing, but there's ways to get in your phones now which don't even require like you can't practice. You can't like do the thing of not clicking the wrong link or practicing where you go. They've invented software where you don't even click anything and they're hacking your phone just dependent on your like what you do. For all you know, like you could be watched just because you're important enough. For all you know, you're like let's say you're fucking Hassan and you're making $1 million or some shit and you're a leftist streamer, and all of a sudden, like this
They
government
need
says,
to watch the
"Do it to
song,
him,"
okay?
and they're like, "Do it
He's
to
on
him." For all
stream
you
all the
know,
time. I don't know why
They
you.
need
Yeah, you don't have
yeah,
to
I'm
watch
but
just,
it.
watch
listen,
Just
I
turn
don't
on
know.
the
I mean,
stream.
I'm
Wiggle.
they
just
need
saying.
to
I'm
yeah,
just saying
more
it
of
could be
the
as simple as somebody that you guys think is simple being watched. It's not necessarily. They were doing this to like foreign diplomats. They're doing this to journalists. I just bring up journalists because I care more about
because
journalists.
they're important.
okay,
What
but
this
wait,
sounds
but
like.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
Wiggle, that seems like that's just an argument for better cybersecurity or something, or making it harder for that to happen. That doesn't seem like
that
that's an
sounds.
ethical problem. But that doesn't seem like that's an ethical problem with the
Yes, it
technology.
is.
That's like
Yes,
no, that seems like that's a problem with people. Like people are breaking the law and doing something. Just like it's not an ethical problem for you to have laws set up that even though people break
but
them,
isn't
it's
but
not
if
that
there's a
the ethical
law, if
problem is
it,
the
if it
law
isn't a
itself.
law, isn't it a law based on like ethics?
Some of them.
Yeah, but we're talking about the ethics of implementing this technology and the ethics whether the technology is okay to implement or not. I don't think depends on
Not
whether
not
someone is
necessarily
going to
the
hijack the
implementation.
technology and break the law to utilize it in a nefarious way. I don't think that means that the implementation of that thing in society is wrong. If someone programmed your cell phone and
No.
made it so that cell phones could explode and kill you, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't introduce cell phones in society just because
Yeah, but
someone did
that's
nefariously hijack that technology.
that's abolishment. Like there's levels to regulation. Just because like we regulate alcohol, like
But you were
everyone.
making it seem like the solution to the facial
I don't know
recognition
the
stuff,
solution.
or even it seemed like you were going beyond facial recognition and you were just going on to like phones that have cameras. Like, because you
No,
were saying
no,
people
no.
just
I
watch you.
put the topic in like panel topics. Like facial recognition is just part of it. It just happens to be that like people are interested in facial recognition. Makes sense. Like I mean, it's like if you've talked about it before and you know about it, people like talking about it. But it's about AI and facial recognition. But largely, the UN High Commissioner was talking about a Pegasus hack that inspired them to talk about it, which was due to these iPhones. It was about like had nothing to really do about facial recognition, but it's the idea that the implementation of some regulation would affect facial recognition because it uses AI. So let's say like it's like the example of like let's say because of this thing that is nefarious, we put like a regulation on the whole world. And now it also affects facial recognition, which wasn't necessarily the problem. And then we go after countries that use facial recognition and we say, well, you don't have these measures in place, so this is a human rights violation. So that's kind of like the idea.
Is it a human rights violation when 2K scans your face to get you a better my character?
I'm honestly scared that like it can scan your face. Like at some point you'd imagine the console would break or something. These new 2Ks must be
Then
better.
you you should have never. Well, this is why I say it's all about.
Like
It sounds
Jesus
like we have
Christ,
a.
that must be the ugliest character in 2K. You must win game. People just leave. They see your character and they're like, "All right, I'm out." Like,
Like,
bro,
So,
they probably raised the rating to mature. Like,
wait,
Well,
so
what I
Chinchilla,
might say to this though, okay, like, is that there are applications in which certain aspects of facial recognition AI may be useful and may be totally fine and innocent, but we need to regulate, we need to be sure about the other applications, such as the current security applications in a lot of fucking retail stores. I just posted 2 articles about it, one from The Verge, one from Tech Radar. There's a shit ton of fucking retail stores that have AI, have facial recognition in their stores right now, and you don't even fucking know it. And they are using that to try to get repeat offenders. And what they're finding is security guards are having interactions with people that were not repeat offenders because of the same shit we talked about earlier with the bias built into the facial recognition.
Well, it's early
So-
stage, man. I would hope
Yeah, it's
that we
early. I mean-
improve.
So,
our
but that's why
facial-
you need regulation on it, because you can't go fucking busting people for fucking nothing, dude. Like, you can't
How do
be
you
fucking
regulate-
stopping people
What's
or
the
fucking up
regulation
their
for
days
that,
for
though?
nothing.
What's
do
the
you
regulation
regulate
for that?
it?
Like, if the
Don't
person
implement
that you're
it
talking
until
about,
it's fucking
well, you don't know
perfected.
when that is. You have
Hey,
to actually
hey,
introduce
you
it
have
to
to get you.
test it.
Okay,
Is this
okay.
not
Let
a
me put it this
science-based
way.
channel?
We should
Are-
we should treat this in the same way that you would treat putting a prescription drug into your body. What kind of
Don't-
testing would you want to have happen before you put something into your body?
This is some borderline and
Because
anti-vax.
no, I have my
No,
vax.
This is
I'm
weird.
good, baby.
Well,
I'm good.
well,
Dude, I
Yo,
went
what
through
putting
that
a
shit.
prescription. Well,
First
hold on,
of
no,
all,
but
Ramos,
Jason,
But you
putting
know,
a prescription
throwback
drug
Pussy
can literally go through
prescription
the
has to be that we need to know that it's going to work to a certain level of a percentage. If we have innocent people getting fucking smashed by security guards or fucking cops because facial recognition isn't working, that's a problem. There's PTSD that's involved with that. There's emotional, psychological ramifications. There could be ramifications with somebody's job. There's more than just, oh, well, hey, you know what? This is kind of working okay, and we can just settle with that. And, you know, people get over it. Their life gets fucked up because we fucking got the wrong guy. You know, like, that's where I'm at with it. You know, we have to have some kind of regulation.
But Jason, if the article is saying that they found out that actually they weren't a repeat offender, then they're innocent. They're not guilty, first of all. But also, prescription drugs go through this exact same process too. You're making it seem like when a
This
drug
is
gets
not
through
going through
phase
that
3.
process. This
No,
isn't
it's going
going
through the
through that
exact
kind
same
of
process.
process.
And if I can explain,
They do
drugs,
trials.
yeah, they go through
So the
trials, and then
trials
hold
are
on,
let's bust some people
wait,
first and then
wait,
ask
How do you
questions
think?
later.
Oh yeah, go
How
ahead.
do you
Finish.
think they find out that you can die
hold
from
on.
them?
Let 2B get finish.
Drugs, drugs go through different phase clinical trials, but even after drugs go through phase 3 clinical trials, sometimes phase 4 clinical trials, and are introduced into the market, you try when you're doing these phase 3 clinical trials to get the broadest set of people, so you represent multiple ethnicities, multiple genders, multiple age types, etc. And you can do that to the best of your ability, and the drug seems to perform well with your sample group. And then you introduce the drug into the market so that now people can acquire it not just in your locality, but also around the world if you're trying to market it globally. And then sometimes those drugs will also be recalled because people from different countries react to it differently. So this would be the same thing where they've done, I'm sure, some kind of test with this technology to assess whether it can recognize people's faces. And then they introduce it into Walmart, Target, whatever. And then it has this unexpected externality associated with it. And then they're going to go back and try to modify it and correct for that. It's the same exact process. You just don't like that it results in this
because
externality. It's the exact same
results in people being hurt, and they have no recourse. That's
Outta
my
here,
problem
man.
with it.
Well, if
Yeah.
It results in people being hurt, and there's no recourse for them. What are they going to do? Like, oh,
This
the
is
company
like-
gets to toss up their hands and say, "Oh well, tough
Listen,
shit.
you're
I'm
arguing
sorry you got
against the
tackled by our
process.
fucking
This
Like,
security
this is like
guard."
saying,
Mason,
don't
you're
go to the
arguing
gym
against
and work
iterative
out
process.
because you're tearing your muscles apart and
Wait,
you're
so
gonna get
if-
hurt.
It's not the
if you
same
guys-
thing.
It's still
you-
a violation of human rights, though.
No,
Yeah.
it's only
It's
a
only a violation, a
if
little bit of your human rights, just for a second,
only a
until we work
violation
it out.
if
Then
it's
it's okay.
only a violation if it's involuntary, which is why I said, all right, let's bring it back. If it's involuntary and they're taking like your face, if you're but I have to say, a lot of y'all are
Retailers aren't
complying.
telling
A
the
lot of you
people.
guys are
The
in. You
retailers
guys are
not
aligned.
telling the people that
You
this is
guys are
happening.
so mad, but you have all this tech in your house. You guys have the smartphones. Yeah, I sound like my grandfather. You have
Also in
all
network
this
security,
stuff in
so
your
I shut
house.
a bunch of
You're
shit off on all
compliant.
my tech too, because I'm
You're
not
that
stupid.
upset about this stuff. You're just
Yeah.
afraid that
Well,
you might get,
What
messed
about
over.
what about this? Like, if you guys want to talk about like domestically and facial recognition, we can move to that. Do you
Yeah.
believe that people should privately be able to own this stuff because their government has access to it? Do you believe I
Yes.
should be able to buy this myself and use it on people? Because the government has
No,
access?
No.
no.
Do I think you
that's
should-
That
not
Wiggle
needs to
should be
be
able to
super
buy-
heavily
Hold on.
regulated. Fuck
Do I think
no.
Wiggle should be able
Are
to
you
buy
fucking
facial
kidding me?
recognition software and use it?
Yeah,
Is that
like
what
I
you're
mean,
asking?
because if the government has access to weaponry or what have you, they have their own place. I should have the ability to buy my own gun or what have you. So it's like that kind of idea. It's like if the government is able to use facial recognition software on me, what is the argument for why I can't use facial recognition software?
I mean, there's plenty of stuff that the government can do though that you can't do. So just because the government doesn't
There's
mean that you
reasons
have
for
the liberty
everyone,
to do
right?
it.
What would be the reason for
I
this
gotta
one?
say, it would be really cool to be able to facially recognize like a cop and be like, oh, okay, so you're this cop. This is your badge ID number. This is fucking, this, and this. All right, now we're on an even playing field, buddy. Like maybe, I don't know.
The biggest
I'm
issue
torn
is
on
that the biggest issue is that it takes away articulable suspicion because they could just say, well, the computer recognizes it, so I don't need to have reasonable articulable suspicion that you've committed a crime at all.
That's a very valid point. That's incredibly valid point. Because they could argue that because of the science and the accuracy of the computer, that should be enough, and you could
but that's
almost possibly get people charged or convicted of crimes that didn't do a fucking thing.
And that's happened.
Without any articulable suspicion or valid reason at all. Period.
Wait, Wiggle, you saying that happened? Like someone got convicted of a crime they didn't do, and we know that they didn't do it.
Yes.
So then they were found not guilty after some amount of time?
Yeah, 100%. But like, wouldn't you still say this is violence? Like, if I took you from your home right now, arrested you, and then left you somewhere, and you were there for several hours under that duress, and then later on you were found to be not guilty, and you were not even involved, you never even been to that area, you would view this as like violence to a small degree. You wouldn't view it as like someone beating you up or like slapping you in the face, but like it would cause harm to you, and you would be innocent, and that would affect your perspective on the
Sure.
government.
I guess the problem I'm having with what the framework that you guys are establishing, Wiggle and Jason, Jason is saying, well, we need to craft legislation so that's protective, so that this stuff doesn't happen. I don't think that's possible because what Jason seemed like he was arguing at this point was like an argument against iterative process because at some point it could potentiate an offense or a breaking of your rights, like for either privacy, or it could manifest like you getting convicted inappropriately of some crime that you didn't commit. So it seems like that's just an argument for this technology not existing, period. Not that there's a safe way to implement it. It's just like you seems like you're arguing that it shouldn't exist, period. And then also
I think there needs
with
to
for
be
Wiggle,
massive
I don't think
advancements. That's what I think. I don't think that it shouldn't exist. I think there needs to be massive advancements, and it needs to show to have
but when do you know
a
when that
high level of
but when do you know
accuracy.
when that high level of accuracy has been reached to the level that you would find appropriate? Because there could always be some instance where the thing that
They
you're
can
worried
keep
about
running
happening
tests in
happens.
controlled environments. There are plenty of people that are happy to pay to go, or happy to get paid to go and do it, go and do experiment trials, especially where it doesn't
Do
involve them
you
having to
ever
take a
think that
medication.
there's do you ever think that there's a control that you can't come up with in a laboratory that you figure out that you actually need to control for this thing after you introduce it to a
Yeah,
more
100%.
complex
Yeah,
scenario?
but this is so
Right.
remarkably
So,
inaccurate at this point that we're not there yet.
well, it wasn't under laboratory conditions. That's the difference, you see? It wasn't under laboratory conditions. They thought they controlled for everything, and then they introduced it in society, and then they found, oh wait, no, it has this glaring issue associated with it. And you can't
So
just for a control, you can't
But
just
they
for any
didn't do it
experiment.
in
Hold
laboratory.
on, hold on. Well, they had to develop this. Well, this was probably done in silico because this is a computational thing that they've invented. So they had a data set that they fed into this, and they
Man,
got
you a
pictures.
smart
I'm
ass
assuming.
nigga, man. Like I
Well,
not.
hold on. I'm just saying because this is a computational thing they're doing. It's done in silico, which is in simulation. So
I did not know that.
they had to get some set of pictures from people, and then compile a data set, and then figure out a way either through what's it called, neural network or machine learning, to train this software to recognize people's faces. And then a problem arises with recognizing black people because you can't just get a bunch of images of black people. One, it's hard to like to literally take pictures of black people. They need special lighting conditions. So you need to satisfy that. And also, like for a lot of different sciences, not just for computer sciences like this, but also for pharmacological sciences, medicinal sciences, you can't just at any point get a complete representative set of everyone. Sometimes it's harder to get black people for this trial. Sometimes it's harder to get indigenous people for this trial just because of their distribution in the population. So you need to introduce at some point, you're going to not be able to control for all of that diversity in society, and you need to introduce it in society when it's reached what seems like an appreciable level of scrutiny. It surpasses an appreciable level of scrutiny. And at the time, it seemed like it did that based off the data set they were given. So I'm saying for Jason, it's almost impossible for you to, I think, reach the level of precision that you want the technology to reach without actually introducing it into society.
I agree. But like you can still regulate without that. Like you can have exactly what you're describing, where it's like the idea that this is fueled by getting like a larger data set, and so therefore there will be mistakes as you
Here's
better
how
the
you do it.
system.
Don't
But like,
fucking prosecute people or go after people because of facial recognition matches, and use it to catalog and collect data as a scientist to better the software, as opposed to fucking going out and arresting people or having security guards fucking plow somebody down because their facial recognition software happened to match them to a former shoplifter or some shit.
so
Exactly, and
That's
for,
then
just,
so
well,
no
hold
no
on. You're saying
articulable suspicion.
exactly, but hold on. That's just what's going to happen. Just like it's just
mm,
you have a law system, right? And occasionally, even though you try your best to come up with a system that's preventative of convicting people of crimes they did not do, sometimes that happens. Just like sometimes it's going to happen that you have this technology, which up to the current point has met this standard of scrutiny. You introduce it into the population. Sometimes someone is going to, the computer thing is going to be wrong. And sometimes that's going to happen. Does that happen in great enough preponderance to where you would either A, disassemble your judicial system, or B, say that it's not safe to introduce this technology into society ever.
But this
Those
is
are the two things
already
you have to grapple
increasing a
with. That happens
perpetuation of
already in the
wrongful
app store.
arrests. Why
This
would we want
wrongful
to
arrest one
increase?
already
Why would we
happens.
want to
Two, it's gonna have
perpetuate?
Do
Why
you,
would we want to perpetuate wrongful arrests, which
do you
this
think this should
software
be
is
something?
currently doing?
Do you
That's
think
my
this?
problem.
Do you
Just
think there
don't
should
do
yeah,
be?
so
this
you're not
for
arguing
the
for
rest
the,
of
but hold on, Jason, then you're not arguing for a safe implementation of this. It will never meet your degree of scrutiny. That will always at some point happen. It will never meet your degree of scrutiny, ever.
But do you think this should even be allowed? Because do you think this should be something that should be like federally banned? If the idea of it is like,
I knew you were gonna say that.
you have the government. If the
I knew you
government
were gonna
could, if the government does get more access to your information, right? And we live in some form of a democracy where it's like the majority decide that this is okay. There's still always going to be a minority, and then beyond that, if a law is passed, this affects the future children, people that didn't even get to vote. I'm not like care about the children. It's just future people, the future population. People 10 years from now never got to vote on that, and now their ID is taken, their information's taken by the U.S. government. Do you think it's important enough that it would be something that we'd want to rule out completely, or do you think it's something that you would support?
I
If you're
definitely want to get rid of it completely.
So, hold on. I do want to
Get
let
out of
in.
here. Oh my.
I do want to.
I don't agree with
Hold
getting
on,
rid of
hold
it
on, hold on,
completely.
hold on. I do want to let in.
It's like
the
getting
new
rid of a
person.
social security number.
Hold on. Oh my God. Do people not hear me?
It's just a number.
Oh my God, guys, do you not hear me? Don't talk over me. I don't like that. Stop it, please. Knock it off. Go ahead. The new person who hasn't got a chance to say anything. Pope.
Yeah, so I think you miss a different point altogether. Is you trust your government to never do stupid shit?
No.
No.
Exactly. Like, say for example, you live in Germany in the 1980s, in East Germany, where you had the Stasi, the secret police. They had to pressure people into giving up information about their friends and relatives. Now they just look at Facebook. It's the Stasi's wet dream. And when you've grown up in a society where you never had this problem, of course, it doesn't enter your mind that quickly that your government might decide, say, it's illegal to go out on a Sunday. Suddenly. Something ridiculous. But hey, they got all the tools, so hey, some camera picked you up on a Sunday. We're gonna throw you in jail. Or you went to a certain demonstration and the government decide, you know what, we think this demonstration is illegal, let's throw everyone in jail because it's against the government.
I don't understand why they need facial recognition software for this though. You already have like
Yeah.
street cameras. You could
I
look
mean,
at street
the-
cameras. You have your phone.
Yeah,
Your
but
phone is already tracking your location when you go
exactly that.
places. Like, I don't
Yeah.
see why you need
Had a lot
facial
of
recognition
people
software
with
to
the
enforce like
gambling stuff.
a mandate that says you
so
can't go
what does
outside
that
past this hour.
The
Yeah,
facial
but-
recognition is to make the street cameras more accurate. The purpose of the facial recognition is to make sure all the
No, I'm just
everything
saying
that
in
does
say
capture your
Pope. I'm
face
just
more
saying it's a
accurate.
Pope. I'm just saying it's a Pope's hypothetical. I don't see. Yeah, it'll add this other additional thing you could do to track people's
not just
their movement or whatever, but you already have their location based off their cell phone. If they go to the bank at a certain time to get money or they make any kind of financial transaction,
Right.
you can also track that. If they that you have street cameras just generally, so you know where they live based off of their address, which they have to put on file, so you know where they live. So if they move, it just seems like there's already a bunch of mechanisms for tracking your movement.
And that's
So I don't see
kind
why.
of the point, though. I mean, I think that's really the point. We've already like massively disadvantaged ourselves by allowing this technology into the public and like into like common life without critically thinking about these things. All you know what I mean? And it's just one step further. The problem is like with facial recognition in particular is that if you get a jury of your peers ahead of you and the police come out and they say the facial recognition technology identified this person to an 98% like a surety that this is the same person, right? Like that's going to put a bias on this information. And we've seen this before very recently a bunch of science that we've been using in courtroom situations has been completely dismissed as junk science. Like the ability that they've been saying for like years and years and years that a gun will put a certain fingerprint on a bullet, and then you can tell with to a degree of accuracy that is like far beyond like what we'd be able to do otherwise, that this bullet came from this gun, and that's bullshit. Like it turns out that is completely debunked, and in actual testing that is not the case at all. And so how many people got locked up because of that? So that's point number one. Point number two, I think this is like a better meta discussion, like if you consider all of that technology and whether the police should have access to it like at all, because like the amount of stuff that you could do now that is like completely dystopian in most people's minds, like for example, like we can look at the protest situation that was going on last year, Baltimore in particular. There's a company that was flying around in an airplane taking a really high resolution photograph or a video basically of a very, very wide area, almost the entire city. Then after the fact, they were able to go back and look for people doing crimes that may or not have ever been reported, right? Like if you can do that, then like you're really, really close to like some thought police stuff, right? And the next thing is that like that type of evidence is not as accurate as it is like purported to be, right? Like you're accurate to within 9 meters of your GPS location, right? So it's like if you're just walking down the street and a crime happens to be committed, like you could possibly be implicated now. You could be wrapped up in the net of people that get swept up and like get investigated, and it's just one of those things. And especially with people are more likely to pick a black person out of a lineup. You know what I mean? If it's a lineup of mostly white people, we know this is science, and like and like in that kind of stuff that's just going to lead to like more disparity in our already biased system and already corrupt system.
Okay, but Revolt, it just seems like all of those things, all those externalities you listed, there's those externalities, right, which are negative. And then it seems like there are also instances where the technology has helped in convicting people justly. And so I'm asking, yes, there are those negative externalities that exist, which I feel like these are flaws with people. Like people will be convinced of things, they'll be dissuaded from things because of circumstantial evidence, because of facial recognition stuff, because of DNA evidence, etc. None of these things are perfect. They all introduce some possible externality, but we still, I would imagine that for most people, they would think that in some cases they're useful, like they actually do get people rightfully convicted. In some cases, they put people in precarious circumstances, which may result in them being wrongfully convicted or justly convicted. How do you make the assessment of saying like, okay, well, enough unjust convictions have happened so that we shouldn't have these bodies of evidence, like these items that we include in our body of evidence,
Well, what if
like,
they're
at all?
disproportional? What if like
Oh, sorry. Oh, you go ahead. You're like super.
your mic is very low?
Yeah, super quiet.
Oh, okay.
That's why people couldn't hear you. I don't think people were trying to talk over
Right.
you.
Got it. No worries.
Oh.
That should be a little bit better now, right?
Yeah, we're
Yes.
much better.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. Awesome. So I've been hearing this out. There's two suggestions I have, depending on what side you're on. I'm against facial recognition technology used by the government because I don't believe you can consent in the same way as you consent to buying an iPhone. You know that has facial recognition technology when you buy it, and you're consenting for Apple to have that information. I don't believe it's possible for like all Americans to consent to the government giving over your face as data to them. But if you are in favor of it, like the person beside me is, I don't know how to pronounce your name, I'm sorry. Why wouldn't you just say that, okay, we need data, like we need to put this into effect, but also there's a lot of negative externalities. Why not let it be in effect, but also not let it be admissible in court, such as like a polygraph test? Polygraph tests still get used by law enforcement in the methods of like research and trying to figure out a case, but it's not admissible as evidence to convict. So,
But Revolt
why
brought
wouldn't
up
that
the
be your
point of it.
solution?
Revolt already brought up like the bias part. Like
Yeah,
it works to bias people.
That's fair, and that's why it's not
This is why
admissible
you
in
need-
court. So the bias can't enter the court system. Now, you would argue that there might be bias in the investigation, but there's always bias in an investigation. Now, I'm not for facial recognition anyways, and I'd ask you if you're like in favor of the Patriot Act, because the Patriot Act is something that actually did introduce the same logic you're implying with facial recognition, but just towards other pieces of our data. So are you in favor of the Patriot Act?
Who are you asking?
Who are you asking?
Yeah,
I think
I'm asking. Sorry, Ubi, is that how you pronounce it? I'm sorry.
Tubi.
Ubi. Okay.
Explain the stipulations of it.
So the Patriot Act was an act passed, I think, sometime in the 2000s decade. I don't remember the exact
It's
year.
directly after 9/11. Like it was
Yeah,
one
it
of
was.
the
It
first
was
things they
after.
passed.
It was post 9/11. As a response to 9/11, and it was very much so hey, we're going to give ourselves authorization to start taking more and more data from sites like Facebook, social media, the internet
biggest-
in general,
the biggest-
and collect it.
The biggest
compromising. It was
biggest high point-
compromising. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the biggest high point was that it allowed for the government to take all of the data that's transmitted over all of the networks inside of the United States, like and externally as well. It was supposed to originally only be externally. Edward Snowden's whole thing was he revealed that it was internal too. So every single piece of data that's transmitted over the internet by anybody is recorded by the NSA, and they can go back infinitely in time or back to the date of its inception of this program and search all of the data that came from you and provide them like a meta outline of all the things that you do and the activity that you have.
So Ben, like I generally like I don't even agree with Patriot Act, and I don't agree with like Facial Act, but to equate these two to each other, I think that's a gross misrepresentative narrative. Like I think that's just gross, man.
Oh, but
No, it's not the same exact like.
Well, it kind of is because
it's not the same thing, but it's the same application. Application would be the same.
If you synthesize it down, it's like the same thing. It's the idea
it's the
of like
same
losing
general
the
principle.
Losing would be the same.
It's the same general principle, but obviously, if the government records literally everything you do on the internet, that's way more data than your face.
Okay, but
infinitely more data than your face.
But now it's
It is. It's your bank transactions. It's your bank transactions. It's all of your social.
They don't have
media
access
posts.
to your bank transactions, actually.
Well, they do. They have the access of the communication of your computer to the bank's computers, and
but they don't have access. Your bank transactions are not as public as just the fact that you went to their website.
I think you may
We're arguing that in Congress
maybe
now.
It's encrypted. Maybe that's what you're trying to say.
It's encrypted, exactly. It's encrypted. They have the ones and the zeros of what's been transmitted by your computer. They have it all. They can go back and decrypt it later if they choose to, but it's not in a decrypted form that they can search. But regardless, like what I was just going to say,
your address is published online, your age,
But now it makes it so that every time you're out in public, you're essentially being put under search because,
you have ways of removing that data. So if you choose, I know because I've done it. You have ways of obscuring this data from the public, and while the government
congratulations for choosing to opt out of the compliant nature that everybody else is opting into.
But that's also not true. The NSA.
That's not like
I'm not saying the NSA doesn't have access to that.
But like Azzy, about the idea of like we just opt into these things. That's like saying like I opt into. It's like saying I opt into waiting every single week for an episode when I download Disney Plus. No, I want that shit immediately. But that's not like given the product.
That's exactly what you do. When
it's a compromise. It's a compromise based on I want something, and so this is something that comes with it. Doesn't mean I actually want that thing. It's I don't have a choice. It's the reason why you buy a cell phone, but why can't you open up the back of it?
You do have a choice.
If I buy a cell phone, I can't open it up and change out the battery. Why? Why? Because they don't want me to? Because they want to sell me like AppleCare or something? Oh, so get an older cell phone.
It's called Right to Repair, and they're actually working on that. Actually, that's one of the few good things that Biden has done.
Yes,
I do like that. Thank you. Proud of Biden for doing that.
Right.
Thank you.
Right to repair is important, but it's off topic. Let's be
the point is you sign a contract or whatever, you opt into those things in theory, but how do you opt out of having a face and going outside?
Yeah, that's the issue. That's the point I was making. Is I have the right to opt out of some of this data stuff, but I do not have the right to turn off my face when I leave my house unless you want me to go out with a mat. Like
I really want to say this. I really want to say this. Welcome to being black in America. No,
yeah,
I know.
The only difference because they're not gonna.
Why would we want to expand that? Like, we should be like contracting that. You know, like
as long as
I'm completely
Tubi is not Tubi's not being, taken from me. It's, the privilege of being. We're not all seen as each other, man. I was gonna crack a joke there, but I'm not gonna do that.
Just do it, man. You know you want to.
Just do
You're
it.
wasting our time right now. Just do it.
Tubi has the privilege of being light skinned in America. Okay, it's amazing. He's good
That's
looking. He's
fucked up.
tall. He's amazing, right? He's not.
If it
gonna,
wasn't for Tubi, we wouldn't even have this topic right now. He's been holding
Yeah.
up like one whole side. Like that's fucked up.
That's fair.
the facial recognition. I'm pretty good looking, but a brother's still a little dark. And people, they mistaken me for a lot of different people. It just happens, even without facial recognition, right? It sucks. It hurts. The other day somebody thought I was Kid Cudi. And I'm
As
not
the
even
all they're
joking.
gonna
I'm not
say
even-
is that why add to that? That's what they're gonna say.
Why
add to
well,
that? That's the argument.
You got a lot of so this sounds like I was gonna ask a question. What's worse? Because this sounds like a advertisement algorithm where people give you, for instance, if you get into the advertisement algorithm where they say we're giving you something that you want, versus something that you don't want. I feel like that's
Dude, but that's
a
no,
bigger
because
problem.
like that's the idea of like a voluntary exchange is that you're buying. It's like what Ben was saying. I'm buying the item, and then I'm getting something I value out of it, and they're getting something they value out of
So
it.
let's
But
flip the
like,
scripts.
but
The
like in a,
facial recognition.
but the facial recognition thing is if it's the government, it's done through democracy. So like
Right.
if there's a large amount of people that say that this is okay, but I'm one of the minority, or let's say I'm an American 20 years from now, I never had a choice to change this. Let's say like 20
You can
years
say
from
that about
now,
any law, though. To be fair, you can
100%.
say you can
You
say that
can
about Social
100%.
Security, and we all agree Social Security
You
is a good thing.
100% can say that.
Yeah.
And that's
Literally
why
asked that
like that's
question.
why it's pretty
That's
fucked up
so
if you're
scary.
born after the Patriot Act like you were describing and imagine
Yeah.
finding
Yes.
out that fucking idiots said that that was okay and you have to live with that your whole life and you never voted for that. There was no like
Yeah.
I went to the store and I bought the Patriot Act. Like
So,
join a
Agree,
political
Patriot
party
Act,
and advocate
there-
for change.
But
you
in
could
this
argue the
situation,
same logic against the like Social Security, which I think most people on this panel are in favor of. I didn't opt into taxes for Social Security, but I do think it's a good thing.
I mean,
Right?
yeah, but I mean, we're just kind of like, yeah, I guess.
Yeah, so
I mean,
that's
to
true,
me-
but, like,
to me,
I don't
I
think
just
that
feel like-
point is automatically bad. I don't think a
These are
law that's passed
arbitrary
against
qualms.
but like, yeah, but
Yeah.
money's not bad. I don't think. I mean, I just don't. That's like, it's like that kind of policy matters. Like, sure, but like right now, as it stands here today, like there's 6 government agencies that are using this technology to weed through people in public. They're violating. Like we have a rights in our Constitution that prevent searches and seizures, right? And like these things are not being observed as it currently sits. So like, what are we going to do about that? And like, is it okay that this is happening? And beyond that, there's a huge financial incentive for these companies that are making this stuff to say
Yeah.
that it's more accurate than it is. And there's,
But, like,
there's no standards for it.
I would have more of a problem that somebody's making money off my face and I'm not getting any of that. I'm not getting any like I'm not getting any of that. I don't take part in
That's-
any of that profit.
because that's the initial that's the whole
That's the
point is
problem
that
I have.
you're giving up your private like your privacy in general for like national security or like so it's the idea that like that is what you're gaining as is that
Well-
you're gaining the ability to live in a system where everything's going to be safer and more streamlined. There's going to be better security, your life will be easier, and then the government gets this information from you. So it's the idea is, are you okay with that? And then for you, it would be like a yes, it seems, because you're saying that I already do this with all the products that I purchase. So I'd be okay with like the government having this information. So if there's everybody in the country who has like an iPhone or what have you thinks the same thing, that's a lot of people. That's enough people to say, all right, let's put this shit through. And then like Apple and what they do with your information, sketchy enough, but imagine the US government. Imagine like just state governments. Imagine police having access to this information. And then to answer what Tubi was saying earlier, you were saying if this affects like a minor group, like a minor amount of people, but there's this large effect that we get from it. If I'm quoting you correctly, like what's the like what would be the harm? Like how do we like minimize the harm and get all the like utility? I would say there's an added element of it. Is that true? Is that what you were saying? You were talking
Well,
about
I was
earlier?
just saying that the arguments that I feel like I'm hearing to me don't make any sense because I think Jason's criteria is literally you can't satisfy it. Um, and I think it argues generally against any iterative process that has any negative externality associated with it. So to me, I'm just not sensitive to that argument. I think it just argues against iterative processes generally, which I don't think we're against here. And then also, yeah, I was just saying there's all of these externalities associated with multiple forms of evidence which are admissible in court. We deem them to be okay. I'm pretty sure we're okay with like video footage. Like one of the biggest, I think, things that biased that was responsible for George Floyd's killer was the fact that you have video footage of it, and I think it's almost impossible for anyone to view the footage of George Floyd being kneeled on and for that not to bias the jury. The egregiousness of the way that he died, I think, made it impossible for a jury to look at that case objectively. And that was a good thing in that case. He should be in jail. Fuck him. But I'm just saying, I think people would think that's okay. And if you had additional evidence that was like, oh, and this is his face, and it matches the facial recognition software, I think people would be okay with it then. And then sometimes you will get these negative externalities associated with it. But again, that happens with just a regular judicial process. I don't see that as a special argument against facial software.
It's about looking at the effects and then finding trends, right? Like, so it's like if there's a small amount of people and then it is randomized and it's like randomized everywhere and there doesn't seem to be like something about it, or like when you look at it you can pinpoint the problem. You have to look at the problem, like and it's not randomized. You can see a trend, and if that trend is like marginalized communities, which happen to be like, let's say, a large amount of people that are like people of color, and then they're also expecting the problems of being like in a minority in the country and having systemic issues that are hurting them, this now couples, and then you have to ask yourself, is putting this group like on the like putting this group at a lower priority like something you'd want to do to better all of society? And like if you gave that up to the majority, they would say yes.
You're asking white people to think more about black people? Literally, I can't go to Walgreens.
The point is that that's the point.
I'm not even being facetious. Literally, I can't go to Walgreens and get a accurate lotion for my skin type. Let alone now they want me to think more of me when they create their facial recognition AI technology. Like, and then that would be the point. It begs the question. It begs the question.
She's making
like,
that point.
You think that black people aren't going to participate and make their own facial technology themselves? We're just as intelligent and astute and involved as the rest of us.
We don't have the same level of resources as you would imagine that. But beyond that, yes, like if you were, let me break this down. If you're like around what, like 13.4% of the entire population, you have less access to resources than the vast amount of like white individuals, perhaps, or the majority individuals in your society.
We're talking about AI. All you have to do is learn the coding language, and you can create your own.
No. It's way more.
Are we in a socialist utopia?
Yeah,
just learn the code
and all the nuances, and yeah, of course. Okay,
but
yeah.
facial recognition software wasn't created by some big business. Facial recognition was created in someone's fucking attic.
Literally, my brother worked on facial recognition.
Doing a student project.
Prototypes for Google, like by himself with a team of 5.
Those people had the resources of time that they didn't have to be making money. No, time that they didn't have to be making money, so they could be in their garage to begin with. And 3, the actual technology necessary to test it. Those things cost money.
But fixing it so that cameras can recognize black people is not as simple as software algorithms. It's not even close to that. It's a hardware problem that like hasn't even been solved yet. And on top of that, and like on top of those points, like what we're talking about is preventing the government from using this tool that is necessarily going to like disaffect black people at an inordinate rate already, and they're already using it, and we want to stop them from it.
So like that's what I was saying, is that if we were to look at the trend and we were to find out that it disproportionately affects people that are like in a higher wealth category or something, perhaps like that would be different. But then you're already affecting like a marginalized community, so it's like this double whammy. And then it's like, think of all the times in the past where we had like legislation that was put in place, or we did something that we thought was great for society, and then it happened to have a negative impact on a marginalized community, and then we look years later and we say, oh, this is a problem. This is one of the conservative ones, like for people that are very like pro-life, they say like that about abortion and stuff. They say that about the ability of abortion. Look at the long-term effects it has on like the black community all these years later, when it was beneficial for society at the time, which would be like the pro-choice argument. Then you have individuals that would say this for like the 94 crime bill or what have you. At the time, they say it made a lot of sense. There was a lot of people that were okay with this. But then look at the like effects we can see later, where it's more clear, it's more black and white that this is bad. So it's like with this technology, we could say that yes, it's good, but it's like it's always like you have to have the careful hand when you're impacting like a marginalized community, because you're working with people. So it's like when
No,
you're working with
it's
people, look at the effect in the future.
It's a lot more.
So
It's
would
just because
you-
we don't have a lot of people thinking about correcting
So,
this issue. We don't have people in.
We definitely do.
Yes,
wanna
yes,
let
we
some-
do.
I wanna-
Like,
We live in America.
I do want to let some new people who've been sitting here, and I want to make sure. No problem. You guys have been great, and I've been loving it. So, and Tubi, don't forget your question for Wiggle, okay? Write it down if you have to. I don't want you to forget it. Let's go to we got. Sorry, hold on. I gotta look at the thing, the list, because I don't know your guys' names. Scrolling down, we have a few people. Well, the one medic, that one medic. Hi.
Oh yeah. Hi. Sorry. My camera's been cutting in and out. So
Yeah.
I've been kind of listening, but we seem to be going kind of like back and forth and up and down. I just want to kind of bring it back to like the policing situation. So over the course of like last year, 2020, we saw a bunch of like black bagging in Portland, and then seeing these people, getting grabbed up, thrown into the I think it was the city hall
unmarked
precinct.
SUVs,
Yeah. And then, these people are getting dragged off the streets, getting their pictures taken, and getting sent off, just randomly set out in the middle of the road in random cities. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So like, what's to stop like we're already seeing like extrajudicial like taggings and like picking up. We're already seeing like feds do illegal shit. Like, what's to stop them from using, if we go not above and beyond, but if we add this extra AI step, like what's them to stop, or what's from stopping them from like just going with that further, I guess. Like, it just seems like this is just a tool for us, or for the police and authorities to really just crack down on like the possibility of protesters. At least that's where I'm coming from.
I mean, it seems like a great tool to implement like anything fascist. Like literally, it seems amazing
I
for
think
them.
even without
even
poisoning the
Moblem-
well with the word fascist, I think that like you can see, it's very easy to see that like the police can now look at, decide that they don't like you for whatever reason, and then go back in the history and say, oh look, there you were jaywalking, and we can get you for that, and like there you were fucking like, oh look at that, you ran a red light, you can get you for that, and like and it makes it way too easy to have abuses of power.
We'll
That
stop
is the
running
point.
red
It makes
light.
it too easy.
Revolt, running the red light thing, that doesn't require facial recognition software. That just requires your license plate. Like, I'm just saying,
The only
like, that's
thing
the problem I
Texas
have
is
with a lot of
based
this
on-
No,
stuff,
but
is that like it seems like there's
In
a lot
Germany,
of
it requires
information out
facial
there
They're just
that links
examples,
you
Subi.
to a
They're just
crime that
examples.
doesn't, like, a lot of these things you're pointing out, it doesn't necessarily require anything about facial recognition software. That's
No,
literally you speeding.
No. Like, what
just
if I'm
requires
driving somebody
a
else's
camera,
car and now they
a
can follow me
speedometer.
into the car? Like, I mean, I'm just saying, like, I understand your point, but I mean, I guess I'm speaking more broadly. Like, facial recognition software and the metadata that already exists it's just
All
giving
the
it
metadata.
another, like, tying it in another way that makes it way more powerful.
But
It just sounds like a
even
more
if they
advanced
can't, but
private
even if they can't
investigator.
tie you to being in the car, if someone else is driving your car and they're speeding, you're going to get the ticket. It's your car.
Yeah,
So
and then I
wanna-
go to court and
But-
say I wasn't in the
wait.
car, and they throw the ticket out usually.
But
And how
That's
would
what
they
they
know
do.
that you were in the car? They would
They have
just
to
kind of
prove it.
video
That's the
footage,
point.
right?
It's the burden
Because
of
they
proof
have
is
to
on
take
them.
your
Yeah.
ID.
oh no,
The burden of proof
it-
is on them to prove that
in
I was.
Germany,
You
they
have
have
to-
to provide you with the picture because
I've gotten a
it's,
ticket thrown out for this
they
before,
need
by the
to
way.
prove
So,
that
like,
you were driving.
Maybe I
Wait,
can
but
use
hold on,
facial
no, but that's not a good
recognition from the
argument. Hold on, that's
No.
not a good argument. Then you're arguing for allowing people to not get
But-
speeding
but-
tickets. No, if you're
yeah,
speeding,
no,
you
I-
should get
no,
a
but-
speeding
but
ticket.
Personally, I don't think people should
I-
get speeding tickets.
in
I
the
think
end,
it's I think it's
I'm
just a
arguing for-
driving tax.
So-
That's
so-
all
so-
speeding tickets are, is a driving tax.
I'm arguing for habeas corpus. Is what I'm arguing for.
I don't think speeding cameras and facial recognition software are on like the same level at any step.
No,
Like,
that's not the
yeah,
point. The point is that
It's
point
analogous.
Is that
No, I'm
for you
agreeing
It's
to
with
not
get
the
a-
same
the
level. It's
point-
analogous.
No, the
So-
point is that for you to get a speeding ticket, it doesn't necessitate. Like he was pointing out, facial recognition software and speeding tickets as if, oh, the facial
Right.
recognition software is
You
what's
made a
important for you getting a speeding
comparison that
ticket.
was
No,
not
it's a lot of things could be
applicable,
responsible for
sure.
you being tied to the speeding ticket. It doesn't necessarily
I,
involve.
What about
I
if,
think we don't have
what
to
if
get
you are
ground up in
somebody that
this. This is a
served?
little bit of
No.
hyperbole
No,
that didn't
yeah.
need to go into like
What-
a whole meta discussion on
Well,
a
Speeding
fucking
ticket?
traffic incident.
but
Like
what about if?
overall,
What about if
I think
you
what the
served?
broad brush that he was trying to paint with is to say that, you know, like once facial recognition is implemented, how far back could they go using facial recognition software to try to pin you with some bullshit that maybe you did or didn't do prior to there even being the software available? What
Sounds
if
like
they
you
go
do.
back over old footage forever to just try to fucking criminalize people for whatever the fuck they could possibly find?
Exactly.
Not everybody lived a virtuous life their whole life, but that doesn't mean that 20 years later they should be criminalized for tagging a
Jason,
building when they're
What is
15
done in the
years
dark
old.
will come to light.
There is
Statute of
Hey, hold up.
limitations.
That's a bad argument. Statute of limitations exists for a reason.
Well, he's saying
Wait,
20
wait,
years
wait, wait.
later.
It's
I'm
beyond
saying
this.
that
It's
that's
beyond
the
this.
only reason I brought
When
it up.
you
You're saying
have
20 years later.
it's
And now,
it's about
now
enforcement.
they're hawking you for every little thing you do.
Well,
you know,
there's two things. One
sometimes
is
people roll through a stop sign by accident. Oh
Yeah, I
shit!
agree with that.
You know,
But,
like,
you know what I'm saying? Like, what the fuck, dude? You guys are acting like everything that you do that's criminalized is always bad.
You act like we don't find
There's
people for
two-
accidents.
there's like there's a
Yeah.
couple
For
things. Like
accidents,
one,
sure.
One is like look at the increase of like what would happen with like recidivism is like let's say you served for your crime and then you're now out of the system. What's stopping them from now putting you on a registry, looking at you, looking for you? And then the
That's
average
why I'm
person
against
doesn't
it.
care about that. The average person would
Well,
say,
recidivism
"Good."
is strongly
Then
linked to you not getting access to education either in prison or after you're out of prison.
now
That's
add
a
the ability to
strong link
watch
to
people right
recidivism.
after. And then here's the other thing. Here's another thing is that like who's to say that they will just like you guys are acting like they'll come after you. Who's to say that they'll do that? For all you know, they'll just gather information on people and they'll just choose who to enforce it on. The same way your bosses at work let the good employees get away with stuff, and when the bad employees do stuff, they say, "Oh, you were 5 minutes late." Let's say you're a judge that, you know, you break the law once in a while, and then they just let you do this. And then when they don't want you to be a judge anymore, they come after you. Let's say you're an individual that does break the law, but it's something that's nobody enforces. It's something that's okay in your area colloquially. And then they decide to come after you.
Well, and I mean, we can look at this again and again. Like we can look at LA, we can look at the Orange County riots, we can talk about all the like gangs that happen to like infest the sheriff counties. We can talk about the white supremacy in Portland with the police officers there. They have no like if they're going to go back into like the records and look at what statute of limitations for what laws, like what is to stop them from not implementing anything on their friends, the people the Proud Boys who go and beat the shit out of protesters all the time, who hide behind the cops all the time. It seems like it's a really easy way to knock out also like political protesters is a large part of it.
100%. And the other thing too is like when you read your Miranda rights, and I'm not a lawyer, shout out to Pisco 95, but like I mean as best I understand it, right? Like the thing that they tell you is that anything you say can and will be used against you. It doesn't say anything about it being used for you, right? Like there's nothing that you can say that they're going to record and they're going to use to help like you get out of trouble. And we've seen this already with body cameras. Like body cameras have been used to implicate people that were innocent because of the framing of the camera, what the shot gets, what the perspective of the camera is now captured in a way that is like it's permanent in people's eyes, and you show it to the jury and they're going to believe what it says, and they can't see what another perspective could have shown. And it's actually been like really bad in a lot of cases, and there's a big argument against
but
implementing
that's
things now.
you
So
can't
now, like,
you can't protect against that. Those are like
Sure we can.
arbitrary.
No, but this is an
you
opportunity
can't
to
protect
stop-
against somebody being implicated.
Yes, you can.
We got Gavin in the building.
Use the
Give it a second.
technology.
That's literally human error.
But we can stop the technology from being implemented if we start
So
advocating.
literally, you don't have a problem with the
the hell, you
technology. You have a
can't.
problem with the
What?
people. That's human error.
Stopping the
Revolt,
technology
no,
from being
dude.
implemented.
This
Even
the problem I have
Moglen-
with this
Yes.
argument
Bro,
that you
bring
guys
on
are
this
arguing-
facial recognition. I'm using facial recognition right now
I
on
know,
Discord
doing to your
to make
face.
sure that my
It's
background
choice.
is blurred and my face is
choice.
Okay,
By
dude.
choice.
The problem
You
I'm
don't get
having.
to choose with the facial recognition software
Yeah.
they're talking about.
Yes,
you
you
don't get
do.
the choice.
I have a
I get
how do you
the
get
choice
to
as to
step
where
outside?
they're using
I have a
facial
question.
recognition on the stoplight.
Wear a mask.
I get a
Put
choice.
your hoodie on. You're
I have a
white.
question.
You're not.
Do you really think?
You're.
Do you really
you
think that
have
any
the choice.
private
Mike, give it a
companies?
try.
Do you really?
Thank you.
Sorry, thank you. Do you really think that any private companies are going to give a shit about your choice? They're less liable and responsible. So those private companies that actually can develop the software potentially at a higher level than the government can probably just be doing this already. Like they just don't get caught, or it's
Yeah.
just they're doing it to sell you ads, or they see, oh, this guy.
If
you're in a
Well,
public
yeah.
By the way, those
The
articles
ads
I
are the
posted
real
about the
problem.
retailers doing this, having the facial recognition, they're predominantly in neighborhoods of color. Just
Yeah.
in case you wanted to know, if you had read the articles,
But
then I
there's-
posted in Twitch like
Sounds
over
like
a
we need to
fucking hour
integrate.
ago.
Sounds like we
Yeah,
need
but
to
I'm
move.
saying that's
Black
still going to
people need to
exist
move out the
everywhere, no
hood
matter what.
and move
The
into the
government-
suburbs.
The government spent
but
$6
that's-
billion on this last year. $6 billion.
Don't jump out of the
already.
window, man. We like your
Okay,
opinions.
but
please.
Revolt, what is like? Because to me, it seems like it's like I want to know what you guys. First of all, what you guys think should be like admissible. What evidence should be admissible in court? Because I don't think you can.
I'm of the
consent. You're not.
opinion
I don't.
that the police's
I
job
was
should
just
be as
gonna
hard as
say-
possible, and they should have as much physical and like they should have to do the hard work to
Yeah.
get the physical evidence because
Yes.
we're
It
protected
should not
by.
depend on one
Okay,
single piece of
but
evidence.
like, what about the case where the physical evidence is you got your ass whooped because you got robbed, and then you were in a store. There's a video camera of this person robbing you where you can make out their face, and that's the evidence you have.
Okay.
Yes.
The
But
issue
they
with
would
You also
facial
have the
we have
person that got
detectives.
their ass whooped as an
That's what we
eyewitness
have
and the
That's why we have
victim.
Hold up,
detectives.
hold up.
They can
This
use
is
his
literally-
2K facial recognition profile
You
to then link it
Okay,
to
but Jason,
the guy
hold on,
who
wait,
beat you up.
But Jason,
you guys
say
do
you didn't have.
realize
But hold on, Nano.
you're
Sorry, but
skipping
hold on,
a
wait, 1
vital
second.
step here.
You're moving the
skipping a vital
goalpost.
step.
Okay, we have
No, I'm
two
not.
people
Hold on.
talking. Come on, 2B.
Just one?
Jason, hold on, but I think you're missing the point here. Is that if we got rid of the video camera where you got your ass whooped and there's another eyewitness there, right? All you have is people saying something happened. It makes the case much stronger if people are saying that something happened, and you also have video evidence that this thing happened to you, right?
Sure.
It makes it more convincing.
Sure. And
Sure, like
And you
infinitely
can get
more
forensic
convincing.
evidence too. I mean, you can get
You know
forensic
what?
evidence
Oh,
off the
Lord.
victim. By the way, I mean, we do have
In
you
the
remember
ability
the
to
R.
analyze
Kelly trial?
DNA. We have fingerprints. We got all sorts of
In
shit
some
we can do.
cases, though,
Okay, wait.
Well, hold on, but that stuff could hold on.
Remember the
Like,
R. Kelly
they
trial
have
with the
access to
video
evidence
evidence?
too, right? You could say that,
2B, go ahead.
but you could say fingerprints and things like that can be used against you in the court of law to
Right.
wrongfully convict you as well, right?
I mean, in theory, but
It can.
it's a much better science. That is, and the other thing is that it's one thing if private
Actually, it's
businesses
not.
want to install cameras and security.
It's
cameras.
not.
Yo,
Someone could
fingerprints
literally
are not actually
get
better.
throw-
As
put a-
somebody
put
who's
your
researched
fingerprints
this
on
for
a
the
gun.
death penalty, it's not. It's not.
No.
Hold
I
up,
understand.
hold up, stop.
Probably
You
a
guys are missing
fingerprint.
one super big vital part of this.
What is it?
When there is a camera in Walmart and you get your ass beat, like 2B is saying, right? Do you know what the police have to do to get access to that?
Yes,
They
yes,
have
yes,
reasonable
yes.
suspicion
Yeah.
and they have to get a warrant.
They
Guess
have to get
what?
a warrant.
Facial recognition by the government doesn't require a warrant.
Right.
They require a warrant for it.
No.
No,
They
how do you
shouldn't
require
require
the
a
warrant?
No. Wait.
It's already there. It's already there. That's the point.
Yeah,
it's already
it's
there.
already-
Like
Yes.
it's there before you get the
That is
warrant,
the
dude.
difference.
It's already
Yeah.
there before
Right.
you get
So
the
change the law so that now it requires a warrant. That's
That's
all
what we're
you're
talking
arguing
warrant. You
about.
can't do
Nah,
that. Like
like,
you can't
wait,
just
wait.
not facial
You
recognize.
don't-
Like the software is on.
What do you
It's
mean you
on.
can't change the law?
You know, like
What do you mean you
I,
can't change the law? What do you
okay,
mean
you
you
don't-
can't
you don't
amend
need
your
to-
laws
you,
so that
you
now you
can't
bring
change
in
how the
facial
software works. Let me
recognition?
put it that way.
You can't.
don't have
You
to
can't
do-
encrypt. You can't encrypt facial recognition.
No.
You don't have to do this.
It's
Like,
just
like
data.
This completely like wipes out your Fourth
What are
Amendment.
y'all even talking
yeah,
about?
like if someone beat, like, first and foremost, if somebody like attacked you in like a store, like, and you had cameras of it, what would happen is like you would call the police. All right, eventually a police would
Revolt
come,
Vice, we
you'd
got
file
some
a
background
report.
noise. Revolt Vice, mute yourself.
You'd follow a report, and then on the cameras, you'd take like pictures of the cameras, describe it, put it on a USB. Like detectives would then come because they listened to the report from like the original cops, and then like you would hand it to them. Like detectives come in all the time. I worked in a store and I did this. Detectives would come in all the time, not for anyone getting their ass beat. The thing they cared the most about was like credit card fraud. So they'd come through and they'd just offload their work to me and make me do the work, where they'd say, hey, this is a purchase, we're looking for this individual, and then they'd have me do that work. The store would say, you do this thing, then I would do this, create this report, and then this detective would
So
come
you a
and then
snitch?
take it. Yeah, I was a snitch for pay, I guess, man. Like I don't know what to tell you, man.
That's
Life's
fucked
hard.
up, bro.
Life's
Don't
hard.
come
Like
back to
hire
the
me.
hood, bro.
Hire me and I'll never snitch again.
Don't
What do you
come back to the
want?
hood, bro.
Like what do you want,
You a
man?
snitch.
Like first and foremost, man, you'd
You
rather
really
have
got
me
one of
you'd
them
have,
$100,000 a year mod jobs?
you'd rather have me do that than sell you a credit card. I'll tell you that much, man. I'll tell you that
Or
much,
sell
man.
you
What's worse?
insurance.
What's worse?
Yeah, I'll sell you health insurance instead.
Oh my god, bro.
So-
No, but credit card like first and foremost, like if you're someone involved in credit card theft, you're a horrible individual. You're literally
Dude,
like
I got a
you're
story.
Victimless crime.
I got a
Victimless
story
crime.
about credit
Shut
card
the
theft.
fuck victimless crime. Some of these people be like, you get
Your
old.
credit can get
You have to
ruined
listen.
by
You have to
that
listen
for
to
years.
like old
My
women
credit's already
sometimes.
ruined.
And old
Okay,
people
no,
come in and be like, they stole my information,
you
and
pay
they're
for
crying.
Soulker.
Hold up,
You
hold
tell
up, hold
that
up.
60-something-year-old grandma that like it's a victimless crime. You know,
Yeah,
go home.
Okay, hold up.
Yeah, sure, you cannot pay the
Stealing
rent
credit
anymore,
card
but fine.
information, stealing credit card information is much different than like fake scanning something at Walmart, all right? You know the victim when you're stealing something from Walmart, and you know what the implications are going to be. They're going to get it covered by insurance. If you steal a credit card and that person like doesn't catch it or something, or there are like a million different possibilities of how you can ruin this fucking person's life
The
for
banks
7+
eat like
years because of the
98%
way
of
credit
bad
report.
charges.
Because the way credit reporting works, there is a chance that this will ruin that person's life for 7 years. You're not ruining Walmart for 7 years by stealing something from them. So saying
No.
credit card theft is a
No,
victimless
but you're
crime is
ruining me.
insane in comparison
Oh
to
my
stealing
gosh,
from
dude, they
Walmart.
just bailed out the banks for $9 trillion. The only way we have access to it as little
Yeah,
people is to
okay.
steal credit cards and make
Okay.
them write it off. Fuck
Let me
them.
ask you this. What is a health insurance's
Bankrupt the banks, baby.
agency's
Bankrupt
job?
the banks.
Hold up. What is a health insurance agency's job? Their job
To
is
pay
to
as
sell
little
you
as
insurance.
possible for my health care
Uh-huh.
and take as much money from me
And
as
you don't-
possible in a premium.
And you don't think the banks are trying to do the same
Actually
thing when they
fact.
get a credit card?
Of course they are. Of course they are. And guess what?
Yeah.
98, like statistically, 98 and change
So
percent of
you're
it gets
willing
written
to
off every
so
year.
you're saying it's a victimless crime, but you're
literally
willing
is.
to allow the credit card agency, which is paid money, to try to decrease the amount they're paying out.
Yes, you're making an argument that I fucking
You're
love
saying that's
because,
a
like,
victimless
yes,
crime.
make them pay money. Make them pay money. They should pay all the money.
Yeah, but,
Fuck them.
But the issue is they don't always. They have
the
an
problem
incentive
is-
not to.
Problem is, I know someone who had it happen to him. He got almost kicked out of his home because the credit card company is like, you know what? We're getting it. Oh, yeah, we can see that, your credit card was stolen or copied or whatever because, suddenly you purchased something in the Ukraine. Well, the day before you weren't. And then the credit card companies, oh, yeah, we're going to reimburse you. That'll take a couple of months, of course.
And they don't
But-
have enough money to pay rent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what do you want
exactly.
from that person?
Like, so is that a victimless crime? Someone getting homeless because of it?
Yo, people
because
will
You guys
way
are-
too much
you guys
guap
are-
dad.
You guys are mad at all the wrong people in this situation,
that
I think, because like the
4,000, bro.
bank should not take 3 months to be able to put zeros on the end of your account balance.
They
That's
do.
simple.
No. First and foremost,
absolutely
it's
do.
not that I'm mad at the wrong people. It's that I can understand that a credit card
shouldn't.
scammer is not a revolutionary. They're like I don't like either. Like it's not like they're doing it for me. They're not doing it because of the betterment of society. They're doing it because they want to get this position in life, and they want to get there by taking that from other people. So like, what's the difference between that and what you would consider like a billionaire? Like you would say a billionaire is exploitative. Like, so what is a credit card scammer not because they hurt the people you don't like? Like, I don't like the banks and I don't like credit card scammers. I don't like banks more, but that doesn't mean I'm gonna be like, yes, credit card scammers. Screw over people to get at the banks.
Yeah,
Like-
the probability of you hurting
doesn't work that
somebody
way.
when you steal something from Walmart is exactly 0. The probability of you like allowing or letting slip by credit card fraud just because you're like, fuck the banks is higher than 0. I'm sorry. My personal threshold of what makes you a bad person is 0%. If you go to 1% and you're hurting 1% of people because you're okay with credit card fraud, you're a bad person. I'm sorry. It's not
That's
acceptable.
really low. That's really low. 1%.
This is like
give you like 16.
I don't care.
You're making such a bizarre argument right now.
Y'all masked off. Y'all masked off.
Just shopping at Walmart in the first place. How many people did you put out of jobs
credit
in
card
America?
scammers.
Wait,
Mask
Revolt,
off,
you
my
said
opinion, bro.
it shouldn't take
If
the
you're
credit
okay
card
with credit
company
card fraud because
months
you're
to
hurting
reimburse you.
1%
Is
of
that
people, you're
PC
bad.
for credit card scamming? Is that what that is, Wiggle?
I don't scam.
No, that's
Revolt.
I've literally been making an
Revolt.
argument against fucking credit card scammers.
Guys, if I
Revolt.
accidentally put Skittles in my pocket when I was 6 years old and walk out, I'm a bad person. That's terrible stuff.
And just to
Besides,
be
that's called,
and
called
hey, and
lost
just to be
laundering is
clear,
what that's called.
I'm not saying it's good to steal from Walmart. All right. Anyways, cool.
But
It's stealing
Revolt,
when you buy clothes, you wear them, and then return them.
That's fucked up. Why? That's so fucked up.
Never
Why
mind.
Walmart?
I'm not
Why
even
can't
gonna.
you?
I'm
Why
not-
can't you say that about like some place that like doesn't help people that are marginalized? Like why can't you just
Yeah.
steal from like some like bougie ass place?
You're right. You're
Whole
right.
Foods, Whole Foods,
Target.
Whole Foods.
All right, Target. Yeah. Whole Foods. You're right.
Whole Foods is
Listen,
perfect
these
for that.
arguments, all these arguments are trash. As long as I'm just asking that when they steal my face involuntarily, okay, that's
All right. Go support
because
Andrew
at the end
Yang
of the
then.
day,
He has a
my
bill
face
about
is
that.
my face
new
is being
centrist
sold to
party
a
with no
third party,
platform.
like they always say in the contracts. My face is being sold. My face, my voice is being sold to a third party organization. It was probably some government.
Yeah. How do you think Apple makes their money?
Why do you think
You're-
Apple? You
or
Apple,
Facebook,
you all
or-
succumb to the devil and you buy the Apple products every single year.
I
It's like-
don't. Fuck Apple.
yeah, thank you, bro.
don't
You're on the
Apple either.
saving grace, bro.
That'd
You're
be
a saving grace
gross
of
and
humanity.
hard.
Everybody, all you guys is just like I don't. These are like meaningless complaints to me at this point. There's arbitrary nonsense. Like you guys literally sound. Some of you probably do advocate against the Social Security number. You probably do advocate. against the
Honestly,
Social
this is
Security
crazy.
number.
Like first and foremost,
Vastly for
man,
Social Security, the
Azzy-
Social Security number, and
Azzy, how
government
can you be a
healthcare.
man
Let's
of
go into
faith?
all of it. And
How can you be
Medicare,
a man
Medicaid
of
for all.
faith?
Let's
And
do
you're
it,
gonna be in
baby.
here. How can you be
Give
a
to
man of
Caesar what
faith,
is
Azzy,
Caesar.
and you
Let's
coming
go.
in here and telling
Give
us
to Caesar
wow.
what is Caesar's, bro.
Okay.
Give to Caesar
Render
what
unto
is
Caesar that which is Caesar's.
Oh my
Exactly.
God.
Pay your damn
So
taxes.
that's-
Taxes,
so
not
we
my
gotta-
identity.
We gotta let some
Go
new people
out.
in. We gotta let some. Actually, maybe we got everyone actually. But
Facial recognition can get a
2B, 2B, you had a question for Wiggle previously. Yell at him, please.
Wiggle, what was the question?
Did you write it down?
No, I thought I was gonna remember, but then we went into like 30 different.
Everybody always remembers, so they have to remember.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I got a question for Wiggle.
Oh no, I already asked it. I already asked it because I was gonna ask, like, what do you guys consider, like, what evidence should be allowed in court? That's just the question I was gonna ask Wiggle, but I already asked him and then he answered.
This habeas
Okay,
corpus.
so here's my thing.
nonsense.
Like, there's a
Corpus,
difference. I
what?
think there's a significant difference between like camera imaging and like just taking a video and taking direct like facial recognition from somebody. Like when you're relying on a computer to essentially make the decision of who you are and what you are, and who like decides to individualize or individualize people without necessarily having all the information, like that evidence being presented in court, kind of like a what is it? Not a sonogram. The
He said
telegraph?
he said a polygraph.
Polygraph. Yeah, like a polygraph. I would assume like they would probably pass it off in court like it's legitimate evidence when there might be like a 3% chance that computer imaging is wrong and the face that it sees is not what it is to the imaging base, right? So I think that like with video you can present it to an audience and be like, hey, this is like the presented like assumed suspect, but that doesn't give it like an air of authority. You can present them a video, show them the evidence, and then let the jury make the decision for the court.
Yeah,
but
you
I think
can say that apart from let the jury decide if they think it's the same person, and also have as additional evidence, so to say, look, facial recognition caught this as this person. It's just a supportive evidence. It's not, evidence in itself.
But the issue is like a ton of people have been literally sentenced to death on faulty DNA evidence, fingerprint evidence, video evidence, stuff like that. The issue is when it comes to stuff like facial recognition, which is nowhere near a certainty level of accuracy yet. And even these things that we objectively look at and say, hey, these things are mostly accurate, even those have led to bad
facial
convictions.
recognition isn't mostly accurate?
No, I'm
hold on.
saying
Okay, this is
to a
thank you
level
for
of
reminding me. This is the
certainty.
question I was going to ask. This is
You
the
lost
question I
your
was
damn
gonna
mind?
Wait, he remembers.
go ahead.
Still quiet. He remembered.
Yeah. So for Wiggle, if the tech, because you were saying the technology is not accurate enough, so it's disproportionately affecting.
I didn't say that. I said that
Okay,
like
well,
the second part of what you're saying.
Adam finished.
It's disproportionately affecting these people, right? And
Yeah.
we're saying it's disproportionately affecting these people because it has this flaw of recognizing or misplacing the faces of darker people or whatever, right? This is like someone mentioned this earlier, whatever. So this has been the underlying hypothesis I've been arguing against, that like it's got this problem in recognizing darker skinned people's faces or whatever.
Yeah.
So if you could fix that problem though, would
Yeah.
you then be okay with it?
If I could fix that problem, honestly,
99% accurate for both white people
yeah.
and dark-skinned black
Honestly,
people.
this is one of those things where I see the gain for society, but I also don't trust our government enough. I don't want that. I don't want that because if you look at it, like look at our prisons. Look at our prisons. There's people that commit crimes that due to the crimes that they commit, I wouldn't submit them to our prison system. So like in that sense, like having a more efficient
But
government.
if it can't see black people, that would help out with equality, right? If it
No, they're
can't
saying
recognize-
that it. No, they're saying that
It just sees them
misplaces-
wrong.
It
It sees them.
misrecognizes you. It recognizes you as someone else because they look close enough to you.
Well,
But
then
you didn't
that's an
actually
easy
commit the
case
crime.
to beat. I wasn't even there.
Yeah, but
They're saying
they can't say that.
Then,
You get the facial
but
recognition
no,
that
but
says
then
you
you
were.
lay the evidence.
Just because the facial recognition says you were doesn't mean you're guilty.
But
What?
like, here's the other thing is that like
The
problem
circus
is
is
that
now
it
you're
biases a jury.
If this
It
is about
biases
data,
a jury, it biases the
That's bullshit.
prosecutor,
I
it
wasn't
biases
there.
everybody involved in the case.
if
I
this
have
is
a
about like
question,
because
actually.
now you're laying you're laying the point of who has to permit the evidence to the defendant again. So
Your Honor, that's
because
bullshit. I
the
wasn't there.
facial, yeah,
Right, but
exactly.
you were-
Because the facial recognition
Your
said
alibi.
it was you.
Oh,
but
you don't
it
have an
wasn't you?
alibi because you're at home alone?
But your
Oh,
phone
fuck.
puts you in a circle
exactly.
within 27
But now
feet of the
suddenly you
occurrence of
have
the
to
crime.
provide the alibi.
How
while
easy is it to
There's no
frame
facial
somebody else?
recognition
Has
that
ever
video.
been
This
tested?
is crazy.
frame
Okay,
someone
look,
else.
the only
So we're saying
thing
that
I would
facial
like to give you guys,
recognition picks up and
But
says
hold
it's
up.
you. Right?
I
I'm
think the best
asking a
argument.
perfect question.
And then
Is
you
there
look
any
at the
research-
video and you say that
Hey,
person is
hold
not
up,
me.
hold up. For everyone
You do know that
vouching
courts
for-
don't work like that, right?
Oh my gosh, please.
Oh,
For
so you
everyone
know.
vouching for facial recognition, is there enough research? Because I'm asking this question, not like in an accusatory tone. Is there enough research on whether or not somebody can either skirt the facial recognition system with makeup or face alterations?
Yes,
or
they
two,
can. Like you'd wear a
straight up-
face distortion mask.
Straight up, just
Let's not make this
almost
anime.
frame somebody else with the use
Well, we
of.
have
It would be
video
hard-
evidence that's
it would be hard to
permissible in
frame
court, and
some-
you can do all of those things with it. This
You
is a
can
dumb
wear
conversation.
you can wear a
Wait.
mask to help against
No.
facial recognition, and it's not going to be that expensive. The
Wait.
second would be like to answer your second part, like they could just run the test again, right? Like because like if they use the system and then they found out like this was like somehow altered, then like somebody could just audit it and then have the system run again, and then you'd be able to see if it's like incorrect or not. Perhaps like they could develop something to just make it so that someone always appears from the scan. But why would they do that? That's something that the government may do against somebody for national security reasons. But like, why would like a state government do that? Like, why would
They're
state
not gonna
police-
develop
why
more
would they ever do-
technology.
I am just worried.
You're the one
that-
advocating for like
No,
black
hold up.
the black population in the United States would rise up and make the best facial recognition.
Wait.
software. Now you're saying nobody's gonna make this shit.
mischaracterization.
I think the
So-
strongest argument.
You
I
got
think the
there, man.
So
I
wiggle.
think
So
the
wiggle.
strongest.
Oh.
Are you gonna go? You can go.
No. Go, Ubi.
I was just gonna say, I think the strongest argument against this really it lies at what Wiggle is saying, and because I'm not really sensitive to what you guys are saying. Oh, it could be misused this way, because now you guys are arguing against like DNA, like forensic evidence, and it's
No,
like
but there's a difference though.
I'm
Collecting
against
physical
the
evidence
government
is
well,
what
I'm
was
just
done.
saying. I'm
data
just
on
saying.
me
Someone at
without
some
my
point
consent.
said that. Yeah, I'm saying someone at some point said that even DNA evidence has wrongly convicted these people, and to
Yes.
me, that's
True.
the
That's me.
that's the
Hi,
highest
yes.
level of fidelity that you
Or
could
wrongly
possibly get to.
exonerated people.
I mean,
That's
this
it.
is why I'm against the death penalty, because I believe everyone has the right to due
said
process, and due
wrongly
process never
exonerate.
ends.
Okay,
So
but I'm just
But
saying.
wait, America has the
due
Patriot
process
Act.
never ends, and wrongful convictions get overturned all the time.
They have to get a
like,
warrant for those
Right.
things. Though. That's the point.
I'm
They have
just
to get a
saying-
warrant. There's a process.
the
There's something
warrant,
that like
due process,
Oh, wait,
due
can we-
process requires. No, hold up. My argument against this was due process is required, and part of due process is warranting. You cannot turn off facial recognition and then just flip the switch back on whenever you get a warrant. That's not how facial recognition works.
No,
So
I'm saying
when
get
you're
a
collecting
warrant
data,
specifically
okay,
for
here's a
obtaining the
question.
facial recognition.
Oh, wait.
Is your face part of your body?
It's on, but you have to get a warrant to obtain it.
Police allowed to search your body without a warrant?
It was
No.
called
Stop and frisk
at one
in New
point.
York, but
Yeah,
that,
like,
that got thrown out.
And it's unconstitutional, is it not? Okay, cool. So if
What?
that- if
What do you mean
stop and frisk is
unconstitutional?
stop.
Stop and frisk got thrown out
Let him
because
go.
it's
Hold on. Let him go. Oh
unconstitutional.
my God! Why does everyone need to talk over everyone? He's talking. Let him finish.
Stop and frisk was ruled unconstitutional because it was a search of your body without reasonable suspicion or warrant. How would facial recognition not be the same exact
Can I answer
fucking
the
thing
question?
constitutionally?
Can I answer this dumbass question? Because you have the right to be surveilled.
This is
in public
constitutional law.
places.
It's not dumb.
Okay, if
You have the right to be surveilled. You do not have
Oh
the
my
right.
God.
You have
You
the
don't
burden
have
of
the
being
right to
surveilled.
privacy in public, is what I'm saying.
Like,
You
what's a
can-
private
yeah.
investigator?
You have
But
the
with
right
the government,
to anonymity.
you don't have an expectation of privacy, but you also don't have the expectation that the government is going to be the one that's violating that privacy necessarily, right?
Wait, okay, maybe y'all are just saying. Maybe this whole panel is based off stupid shit. I didn't know we were saying the government.
What? Due
is
process.
setting
No.
up-
Facial recognition, like,
Hold on,
the
hold on,
let him
hold on,
finish.
oh
I
my
guess
God.
our
You-
constitution is stupid
okay,
shit.
you see what just happened? All right, Gab was talking, right? He was saying something. He said a few words, and you immediately reacted, and you didn't even hear the last of what he was saying, right? Like, so you have no idea what the meaning of it was.
Exactly.
So
Let him finish.
maybe react once he's done. Gambit, please.
Yeah, so I didn't know this conversation was the government has set up facial recognition everywhere. I thought we were talking about like some company has facial recognition. They are subpoenaing for the evidence. I didn't know.
That's
y'all had
where
any-
we were. That's
We
where
were
we
talking
were
about Walmart.
originally.
We were talking about
We were-
Walmart has the technology.
So kind of what we're
So why
debating
did he
is
say
should
the
the government.
was setting it up? Jason,
Because
Well,
they're
they expanded it to that. It
surrounded
started
by
with
morons.
Walmart.
I expect Jason's side to get real stupid. Okay, so that makes sense.
The article that we were citing to
Oh, don't get
originally
ugly,
start the
motherfucker.
conversation
Don't get ugly.
was about the government now instituting this stuff by using cameras, government cameras, and government and like specifically like contracting other companies to do specifically for the government do this type of surveillance so that they could mass scan basically for facial recognition or using facial recognition for different people in the crowd.
Would it
Wait,
also be possible for this to potentially help the potential like wrongfully convicted people if we just use it as like a coalition of evidence? Like you need to have DNA
Potentially.
evidence alongside AI evidence so that people that are wrongfully convicted can also potentially get out of cases because AI says, you know, if it's somewhat accurate to the sense that it can be used in the court of law and there's DNA
I can
evidence.
What do you
take
mean
this.
by AI?
What's the
evidence?
incentive?
So
What's the
AI evidence is
incentive?
actually you
What's
have
the
somebody-
incentive for
Let
the
him
government to
answer.
What is the
So
government-
that's actually a great question. The incentive for the
Yes.
government to do that would be to minimize the potential marginalization of African Americans
No,
that
no.
are wrongfully convicted.
No,
Yes,
when
right?
you
but like,
say
but
AI
here,
gonna do
first,
that?
What are you
first and
pointing to?
foremost,
funny.
like,
What is that?
That's an
first,
ally right
first
there.
and foremost, if you're put into like a prison wrongfully, I think they do give you money. You might need a lawyer, but you can get money for the years that you're in prison, right? So it's
Oh
like
God,
why?
it's so bad.
And then
though.
if
It's
you're
so
already in
bad.
prison, like why would they want you to now come out of prison so that they can then pay you?
Oh, Sorry, I'll be more clear. It's more about like prevention. So like if there's a case that comes up and there's DNA evidence and it's
Oh.
like potentially planted DNA evidence, it's like, okay, if we have the AI software that's going to be used to
What is
prove this
AI
further.
evidence though? What is this AI evidence you keep saying?
Okay, so
What
if you
is
get
that?
somebody, okay, so if there's like, video software surveillance or somebody has access to your phone, I don't know exactly what the specifics are for what the government's intending to do, because I think that just kind of varies. But if there's evidence where there's a video camera that can see that there was potentially planted DNA evidence that that person may have been in the vicinity, but there was another person walking up, we have facial recognition that caught it was a different person that potentially planted this evidence, then it's like, okay, that
So
DNA
video
evidence that was
evidence.
now,
I
right, I
have
mean,
an answer to
that's
this.
kind of the same thing, though. It's the facial
The
recognition
reason
software that
why.
can pick
So
up that.
the question I would pose back to you is, who has access to this evidence? Like, which
That's-
people have it?
That's the whole conversation. I think it's like
No.
it's a super
I'm
slippery slope.
aware.
I mean,
But what I'm
I
saying
think-
is, people with the evidence have a direct, like, intention to get a guilty verdict. Like, talk to any attorney general ever. The people with access to this information, their entire job is to get a guilty verdict. So they're not
access
going to
versus
use
ownership is two different things, though.
Okay, yeah,
But
I agree. I
Right.
actually completely agree with
Yeah,
you. And the
yeah, I
issue
think we
here
agree on that.
is, the issue here is
Mhm.
the ability for someone to access that information as the innocent party is non-existent versus the access for that that technology for an attorney general trying to rule you guilty, who will never ever pose evidence in a courtroom showing your innocence because it's against his best interest.
But you could do that
Well,
if you
that's
knew.
kind of
the
just
issue.
implying that the attorney general is somehow just going to do the opposite of
Yes.
duty of withholding evidence. I mean, yeah,
Yes,
that's
it
a
happens all
that's
the
a
time.
whole
No,
that's a
but
whole systemic issue.
why would you
happens all the
think
time.
Terrible,
why
but
would you think
how is
the
AI going to make
defendant?
that any different? If that evidence
Why would you
exists,
think
that's
the
still going to
defendant
happen.
doesn't
within
have
9 to
The
access
11.
issue
to it,
is,
but the
I'm
attorney
trying to
general
give.
does?
Can't really make it
Oh.
worse if they deny that evidence, and it's like, okay, then basically
Yeah, it's
wait.
kind of
nobody
weird.
knows
Like,
what
if you're
this
gonna bring up
going
this
on.
evidence, don't you have to submit it to the court so wouldn't the other side get to see it?
Yes,
wouldn't
It's
they be
called
able to
discovery.
appeal to the
It's called
judge?
discovery.
Thank you.
Yeah.
discovery.
Hang on.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
thank
don't
you.
know. I
Exactly.
spent
I
most of
think-
my life in a
Hold
law
up,
office,
hold
but
up, hold up,
apparently I'm
hold
a fucking dumbass according to GSU
Guys.
Gambit because I don't do database administration.
Hold up.
Jason's just too smart for me.
So, discovery, and I know this because I'm like really into law. I'm pre-law, so this discovery process of evidence is only working off of what they decide to submit. They do not have to submit everything. They only have to submit the evidence they plan on later using. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So if
This sounds like a human.
Hold on, no, stop.
But why do you think only they have
Because-
access to this information?
Just
Because
let him
they're the
finish his thing. Just-
investigators. The
Like,
Because
the
investigators.
they
defendants
can
can,
get
have
warrants.
access to the information too.
I don't think
but-
you're understanding at all what I'm saying.
Well, that's okay. So
No,
I
we
don't
understand
think
what
you
you're saying. You're
understand
saying
what
that
Okay.
there's asymmetry of information because one side is
Yes.
incentivized. But what
Right.
Gambit I think is
For a
getting at is
guilty
the idea
verdict.
that why would that exist if like you're submitting this, there is a judge, this is
I
government
know there's-
information, they don't own it.
No. That's the issue. That's the issue.
No, I'm not
Ben.
talking about Schmidt.
Hold up,
No,
hold up.
I'm not talking
Any
about
evidence,
Schmidt.
any evidence that is going to show any partially innocence of someone they're trying to get a guilty
Wait,
verdict
what's
out
this
of
guy's name?
will never get submitted to
Wait,
begin
not out of
with.
Ben.
So
Not
there
out of
is no
Ben.
discovery.
Not out of Ben. Let
Ben,
me ask you a
Ben.
simple question.
Hold on. So
Because
Gambit
you're like
asks a question, and then I want to let Mike.
Yeah,
get
I
it.
don't get how you don't understand this. What I'm saying is, let's say we know Walmart has whatever the fuck you're talking about, AI, whatever all this shit you're talking about.
Mhm.
If somebody's saying I committed a crime inside of Walmart, I can
Yes.
get that information just like the prosecutor could to
No, you
exonerate me.
No.
Yes, I could.
You'd have to get permission from Walmart. They can get a warrant. You can't.
And
Wait.
Walmart wants to prosecute you.
No,
And
you would get a
Walmart- and
subpoena from the
Walmart-
judge. The judge
Yeah.
would,
Yeah.
would
You-
grant the subpoena. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah,
being
why
on
are
the
you-
level about how
I
it
don't
works.
get this whole
Yeah.
dumb view
That's
you have
assuming-
about
that's
leadership.
No,
You're
wait.
free law
assuming-
and you have this bad idea?
No, wait.
I know about all of this. I know literally how this system works. The issue is,
I thought you were
criminal
like
defense
really
lawyers
into
are
pre-law.
Oh, wait.
I
Time
am.
out. Wait, hang on.
I'm
The
in
point.
the criminal. Oh my
Hold on.
fucking god!
Ben, Ben,
You're
Ben,
not
do
a
you mind if
Defense
I-
No,
attorneys
Ben.
are like
Ben,
10
can I-
times
can I-
as incompetent
Ben,
as any
Ben.
attorney general.
Ben, can I
Ben,
point something
Criminal
out to
hang
you?
defense
on.
attorneys have a stack of cases that are 10 miles high.
Okay.
What do you mean?
Oh my God, Mike, give it a try.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Ben, so I absolutely agree. Attorney generals have like a duty or personal responsibility to prove somebody being guilty, right? But if somebody's planting evidence, correct me if I'm wrong, if somebody's like trying to get you put in jail and they're planting evidence on you, is that not also
Not
illegal?
planting,
and could
not
poten-
planting, not planting.
Really?
It is no.
It's not
Hold up.
illegal for somebody to walk up
You're
and
you're
put pot in
twisting
your
what I'm
pocket?
saying. No, it's not
No.
planting evidence to refuse to submit evidence. There's a difference.
No,
I
no,
think
no,
No,
no.
Major
earlier you were
difference.
talking
wait,
about
You're not-
planting
wait,
evidence.
Ben.
You're
No,
not.
it
You
No,
isn't.
said
let me
so
finish.
much
Using-
shit that you don't know what you
Listen.
said.
What?
Listen.
That's
okay,
not
listen, I'm sorry.
what I said.
Ben,
Wait.
I'm
I
not
never
talking
said
about
planting
that.
evidence. I'm sorry. Like I never
Okay.
said that. Like
Okay,
please
so
clip
okay.
it.
Oh my
Someone.
God. Okay. Mike, go.
Refuse to submit.
Oh my
Hang
God.
on,
Mike,
what
come
Ben-
on.
Repeating
Shut
what I'm
up.
trying
Mike,
to say.
go.
If I'm repeating what I'm trying to say, why would it be the case where there's potentially like a false implication where somebody didn't commit that crime, right? If there's like false DNA evidence, like I have to assume a lot of the cases where there's false DNA evidence, it's because somebody did something to actively put their DNA onto the scene, or it's just like
I wasn't talking about DNA. I was talking about facial recognition, which is notoriously bad towards black people, which notoriously have awful defense attorneys and notoriously have a way higher chance of false conviction in our criminal justice system.
Why do y'all
You're
think
saying
you
that
can
you're
have
saying that more
facial
technology and more
recognition
evidence is
without
somehow going to make
video?
you.
What are y'all?
Yeah, I'm saying.
Guys, shut up. Let Mike finish his point. So, Mike,
Go ahead.
You finish your point, right? You ask your question, then you can answer.
Thank you. So you're saying that somehow more access of that information where the attorney general can look at that is somehow going to lead him to then also somehow make it the marginalized African American to a already bad system for African Americans, which just kind of exists everywhere. Like if he has that evidence and that evidence is damning towards his case, why would it be any different if AI wasn't there in the first place? Why would that be any different?
Because what I'm saying is it will get used in every single case that is trying to prove an innocent party guilty, and it will never get used in any case where you're trying to get a guilty verdict out of somebody who is innocent. And the
Then
issue
that's
here
the
is
coalition of evidence. How it's
Okay,
gonna be pretty damn hard for them to fake
Hang on.
facial recognition
My-
and DNA
my-
evidence and sources. Like it's just
That's
another
not
step to make it
saying-
harder for them to fake
on.
that
Oh my gosh.
evidence.
Hang on. I think
That's
the
not my
point
point
that
at all.
Ben was trying to make, as Gambit asked, like, you steal some from Walmart, they're trying to confect you, whatever, or do something else in Walmart. But that means the defense has to know that evidence to make, to provide evidence for your innocence, they have to know that it even exists.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he's
And the
trying to
issue
say. If you
is-
don't even know that it exists, how are you going to use it? The prosecutor will never submit it. So you don't know that the evidence even exists.
Yes,
No,
that is
so
exactly.
I
Yeah, but
was
like
saying-
this is
wait, wait,
inherently
you
this is
directed that at
inherently
me.
dumb because it's like when you're talking about facial recognition and if it's something that harms you, well, like you are there with your lawyer, like you are going to say, "Hey, these are all my cards on the table," and then they're going to have an idea that what the other lawyer is saying is incorrect and is not true. They're going to be incentivized to advocate on your behalf and try at least because just like you said, they're incentivized to win.
Hold up. You think
Yeah,
a
defense
criminal
attorneys are in a
defense
way
attorney-
worse position.
Yeah,
I'll tell you that.
you think-
They're in
you
a
think
horrible
cri-
position
They
compared
are
to
in a
AG.
worse position. They
You
are in a
think
worse
criminal
position.
defense attorneys in America are incentivized to help you? That is hilarious.
They're incentivized to settle the cases if they're
No,
public
you're
defenders.
defense lawyer.
Okay,
You're a
well,
defense lawyer.
okay, but here's the thing: it's
Y'all are
if you-
mixing public defender versus defense attorneys.
Yeah, I want to
What do you
clarify.
think
I'm
is
talking
gonna
about
happen
public
when somebody
defenders.
gets accused of theft in Walmart?
This
You
was-
think these people
this
have
was-
money?
So wait,
First and
this was
foremost, you think that if people get accused of theft in Walmart, they're going to be using facial recognition software to like frame somebody and they're going to go to a court
Hang
trial?
on, that's the whole hypothetical. That's not there we go.
Hang on.
Okay.
Did you hear that? I wasn't the
Nah,
only one who heard that.
I'm not
You
gonna let
think these
that
people
slide.
can
That's
afford
the whole
like,
hypothetical.
dude.
Wait.
Okay,
This
how
is
did you
not
get
the way that
these
these people there,
$1,000 necklace?
people.
Okay, there you go.
Okay.
That's grand larceny, right?
My
Wait.
simple, just hold up. So let's try to at least figure out where we agree first. Do you agree that the asymmetry of information between attorney generals and prosecutors is at a very big disparity between them and defense attorneys who have 10 million cases at a time, and their sole incentive is to get through as many of them as quickly as possible, and they don't have the time nor the asymmetry of
So
information
you're gonna
on their
ask a
side?
question. You're gonna add 35 qualifiers and let nobody answer.
No.
Go ahead.
That was it.
Can I answer?
Yeah.
Go with the public.
In a world where we make publicly available or widely available systems that's tracking everything, the only possibility is that you close a gap if there's an asymmetry.
Wait,
Everybody
what? That,
knows.
that didn't register in my head at all.
Okay.
Can you
let's-
reword it?
Let me try to help you. Okay. Let's say everybody knows that Walmart has this facial recognition software. Now, this thing that's running always, everybody knows it's there. So if there's any complaints of theft or anything inside of Walmart, the defense attorney and the prosecutor both know that there's evidence that they can point to support their case if their case is true. So it could only
That
serve to
would
help.
definitely assume that everyone is aware it's there, and I believe the
Everyone
argument
has
being
to
put.
know.
No, hold up.
You don't think they could ask
The-
Walmart?
Walmart's not like at all like obliged to like.
Well, dude,
comply.
first and
So you think
foremost, it
Walmart-
depends.
Okay,
Wait,
so
it
what
depends
you're
on where you are.
Hold up.
Like, you could be in a state like California, where like
where you're at.
No,
Hold up.
no, wait. He was talking to me. I want to see
Okay.
exactly how dumb he is because he says he's pre-law.
No.
You think there's
Hold up.
Hold on,
Let me-
wait. No, I asked you. You're not.
I wasn't done.
Okay, all right, shut up.
I wasn't done.
Monologue.
It's another interest for Walmart, which
Oh
is
my
a civil
God.
case where they could recover more money.
Yes.
Okay, can I ask?
Just
I
you,
wanna
go
ask
ahead.
my
Hold up.
question. Okay,
I wasn't
You're
done with
saying
my
that there's
response to your last question.
Shut up. He's literally going to toss back
I
to you.
wasn't done with the
Shut
response
up,
to my
Ben.
last question.
Ben, when I say stop, you stop. There's no question. You don't fucking argue with me. When I say stop, you fucking stop. Okay, Gambit's literally about to throw back to you. You will get to talk in like 2 seconds. Fucking wait for it. Gambit.
That's fine.
Yes. So you think there's a criminal case in Walmart? There's a person who has to defend themselves against a complaint of a criminal activity in Walmart, and you think Walmart, with their whatever the fuck y'all have concocted, is gonna withhold that evidence from the defense? Have you lost your fucking mind?
Potentially, yes, and here's
Oh my
why.
God.
For the same reason Jason just pointed out. They have an incentive to recover funds, and a guilty verdict is the fastest way that they can get that. Yes.
This is a
They have an
laughably dumb.
incentive.
So
They
no,
have an
this-
incentive
You don't
to
understand
not.
the law then, GSU Gambit. Maybe you should stick to databases because you have no idea what the fuck is going on with the law. You literally have no fucking clue. And I've sat here and listened to you
Wait.
call people fucking stupid, and you have
You
no
are.
fucking clue what the fuck
Wait,
you're
you
talking
are.
about. You're a fucking
You're
ignorant fool.
absolutely stupid.
Wait.
Go run a SQL fucking program, motherfucker, because you don't know shit about the law. You know,
It's a
fuck,
SQL
dude.
program. You just revealed how dumb you are.
SQL.
Fucking
You're so
SQL
dumb.
motherfucker stupid.
SQL
When you don't know
program?
what the fuck you're talking about? What
Brian.
fucking law degree do you have, bro?
Brian.
When have you worked in a law
I
office?
need that SQL program in the morning, bro.
When have you worked in a fucking public defender's office? When have you worked in an attorney general's office? Oh, never? No. Go fucking run a SQL database program, motherfucker, like you should be doing.
database
You know dick about the fucking law.
Hey,
Go back to the back office, GSU. Get out.
hey, listen,
hang
bro.
on,
You
Jason.
just
Have you
back
revealed
calmed
to
how
the
down?
dumb
Crips.
you are.
All I,
All right,
You stay off my
Jason has
back.
my
calmed down.
simple
Okay.
Go
point
back to the
is
stores.
That was fun.
Walmart
I like that.
has a financial incentive for the case to get settled and for them to get their money back.
Like, can
So
we-
they're
Depends on
gonna
the state you're
withhold
in.
evidence.
And I
from
think
the
in
defense.
California, don't
Wait,
they have like better
Gambit,
and more
Gambit.
consumer protection, like for
Because
holding of information?
Um,
Don't they have to disclose or to get rid of information in California?
Yeah,
Like you could go to like
and
you
I
could go to like a Target, I'm pretty sure, and just
You
be
know,
like,
and
Wait,
delete
actually,
your information.
no,
off.
hold up.
Wait, Wiggle. Don't argue
No,
with
GSU,
dumb
stop,
folks that
stop,
say
stop, stop, stop,
Walmart,
stop,
where the
stop.
criminal case
Bro,
happened, is gonna withhold
chill.
evidence.
I'm
You can't
about to
argue with
agree
They
with
would
him.
if they have
You
an
can't
incentive.
argue with database
Oh my
programmers that
God.
don't know shit about the
He's
fucking
about to
law they're
agree,
making
guys.
things
He's
go
about
because
to
they're
agree.
No, every time you say
research.
Slow
database
down.
programming, you reveal how dumb you are. Stop saying that.
No,
You get
I was
dumber
just
and dumber
about to
every time
agree
you
with
open your mouth.
You're
Wiggle.
building a website,
Chill.
even better.
Oh my
Okay,
god.
all right, okay, Doobie. Oh, sorry, Tubi, excuse me.
Go
Tubi.
back to Wix, GSU.
Tubi, excuse me,
I was
please.
about to agree with Wiggle that that sort of law would actually somewhat curb the complaint I have.
Tubi,
I'm trying to argue in bad faith.
Tubi.
Yeah, you guys are amazing. Oh my goodness.
Thank you.
But
Thank you.
Yeah.
give
You're not a
yourself
real
a round of
lawyer.
applause.
You're not a real
No,
lawyer. You're
but
pre-law. You're not a real lawyer.
Yeah,
No,
I'm
but
admitting to that. What?
You're not a real lawyer.
Is that an issue?
Everything is invalid.
no. I
I'm
mean,
do the
for me,
interested in this field, so I study it.
But the
Is
point
that an
wasn't
issue?
the law.
Tubi,
all right.
Tubi,
So
get your point out.
yeah. So the issue for me again with the other side of this, whoever's on the other side of this, is that again, I think one, the criteria is just unsatisfiable for when an appropriate implementation for this would ever exist. Also, I don't think that's even the problem. I think if this had 99% accuracy, the people on the other side would still just you would argue against it, saying that it still could lead to a wrongful conviction or it's a violation of your rights. So I don't even think it's a problem with the fidelity. I think you just don't like this kind of data being introduced. I think the critique of false accusation is not satisfying to me. Again, lots of data does this. People on here have even argued that you use DNA evidence, probably the highest fidelity evidence you can have. Single nucleotide polymorphism, gel electrophoresis is like 1 in a
Slow down
trillion
there.
chance that you would be that someone else would match that for you. So that's like the highest level of fidelity you could possibly have, and that still can be used apparently nefariously. And then again, the third argument seems to be that people are saying, well, there's police officers snatching up protesters, tagging them, whatever that means, maybe taking pictures of them, whatever, in some way getting some kind of information from them, and
Means
then
taking a
tossing them out of
profile pic and like
and
putting
then
them.
tossing them out of the
What
police
happened?
van or whatever. Okay, and so this is all to bolster this argument that if you introduce this kind of stuff, you're implying governmental or system-wide
Is
nefarious
that
intent.
stated by Jason Society? Can I ask that?
No, it
No,
wasn't.
it was
I don't think that
somebody
person's.
that
I don't,
is.
yeah, that person's
Was
not
it
here anymore. I don't
that
think.
one medic
Oh no,
or
it
like
was.
I don't know.
I
Yeah.
think I brought it up by accident.
Yeah, but
I
I'm just
apologize.
before anyone else
Shame on you.
interrupts, please. I'm almost done.
It-
I think
Hey,
that
wait.
argument.
No, I'm playing. I'm playing.
Silly. No, but I think that argument is just not satisfying to me either. Like you're implying that if the biggest problem, if all of these systems are failing us, which is what you're implying when you say that the government would have this nefarious intent to subvert your rights or to go out of its way to prosecute you or whatever. The biggest problem in that case is not the fact that they have access to facial recognition information anymore. The biggest problem in that case would be that the government is literally conspiring against you
Yeah.
as an individual or a group of people, and they don't need
Yeah.
facial recognition software
Right.
to go through this concerted effort to convict you. So again, I don't think any of this stuff really is an argument against facial recognition software. To me,
Yeah.
the most compelling argument would be it may just literally be a property of physics because of how light reflects off of black skin that you cannot optimize this software so that it can accurately discriminate between two black individuals, two dark-skinned black individuals. If you can demonstrate that no matter how many times we go through iterative process to try to refine this technology so that it achieves this high level of discrimination between two nearly identical black people, to me that's the most compelling argument that this technology isn't viable because it'll have this inherent bias no matter what. But I don't think that's been demonstrated.
But to be even then, even if that was possible, a wrongful identification isn't a conviction, right? There's still a video, right?
It can lead to one though.
It's still harm.
Very often.
I mean,
very
everything
often.
can lead to a wrongful conviction, right?
Okay,
exactly.
There is an
harm.
imbalance. There is definitely like a
It's
big
measurable.
imbalance currently with the way the justice system works, where like almost any evidence that like seems foolproof, like almost always leads to a conviction. Do you know what the conviction to innocence rate is in criminal courts, like currently in America?
No,
it's
I'm
over
not pre-law.
90%.
Damn.
It's literally over 90%.
You're aware that most likely they're only going to try cases.
Hey,
where
hold
they're
up.
fair.
That's not
I'm
true.
about to
That's
admit
absolutely
something
not
right
true.
now. Hold up. I'm about to
You
admit
think
something
most
right
people
now,
who
though.
go to court are innocent? Wait, I want to hear this society.
Not most,
More dumb
not
shit.
most,
go.
not most.
I'm
But do they take
don't
cases
let
and
him
try
say
cases
anything
where?
else.
Do they take cases and try cases where it's possible that the person is innocent?
I didn't
Absolutely,
say
all the time. They will charge and try every case they possibly can because what they want is they want a settlement because a lot of these people don't have money for
Do you think
representation
that's the vast
and it's money
majority
for
of
the
cases?
city. Yes, I do, and I've seen
You
it
think the
very much.
vast
I live in
majority of
Arizona
cases
where I
that
see it all the
uninsured-
fucking time.
You know
We have
what?
had trouble with it here.
Oh,
Okay.
I forgot. He doesn't have
hold up,
syndication.
hold
He
up,
just
hold up.
says shit.
Wait.
And then he like swings his
Hold
tail
up,
back.
Jason.
Let him finish.
I can link researches on this. Jason is absolutely correct on this.
He's
point.
right about
they seek
what?
out
You don't-
settlements.
He's right about
they,
what?
They seek out. They try cases that they know they don't have enough evidence for to seek out
En
a
masse.
settlement.
You think that's
Hold up! I'm about to say something you're gonna like. All right.
No, you're not. You just say a whole bunch of dumb shit.
Dude, just let him go. Come on.
Man, chill.
Just say it, Ben. Just say
Don't
it.
you have some
I know.
coding
Dude,
to do?
come on, dude. What is with the foreplay, please? Just
All
like,
right.
Come on.
Just
I'm
say it.
about to say it. I'm about to
There-
say it.
I'm gonna
Say
say
it.
Well, I mean, people gotta
Say
shut
it.
up, you know.
Yeah.
I'm trying to
Oh,
incentivize
Jason
you to shut
Society
up.
is worried
Anyway,
about people not
so
interrupting How cute.
currently, my logic placed earlier is not wrong under current law. Basically, there is a way that defense attorney or prosecution attorneys used to mark evidence as not material anytime it showed them as not innocent, and thus the defense attorneys were not like legally allowed to gather that evidence. Now in Orange County, however, they've implemented laws of which they are no longer allowed to like withhold non-material evidence. So a law like this being implemented nationwide alongside facial recognition would solve the problem you're talking about. But without it, what I said would happen would absolutely happen. But
Question.
if
guys-
this was
but you
conjoined
guys-
with
Ben,
it,
Ben,
yes,
because I
I'm
don't,
okay
Ben,
with
because
it.
I don't actually know.
Yeah.
Could potentially withholding evidence can just lead to some sort of like very strict line in which it's then just called tampering evidence. I mean, withholding evidence is also
No,
technically, could it also be called that? I mean, could it be called tampering with evidence if you're
no,
Yeah,
withholding
try to
evidence
get
is
a
not tampering.
prosecutor in trouble. See how long
More-
that's going to take you.
Yeah,
It's not going to happen.
Yeah,
that's like maybe we try to fix a system that's
I
causing
agree
this
with
problem,
you ethically.
right?
Hey, hold up. I
Yeah.
agree with you ethically, but
Yeah.
sadly, that's just not how it
reality.
works
Yeah,
out.
reality.
Yeah, exactly.
I get that.
I
I get
agree
that,
with
yeah.
you on ethics, but it's just not how it works.
What if we
sadly.
what if we widen it, right? So it's like if the idea is like you want to get a larger like data set so that this would be more effective, right? It would make
Mhm.
sense to go to countries that have far more people, aid them in this technology for the ability to then have access to this data because you're getting more of these faces, you're building your profiles. So
Like
what would
Africa?
what would you feel like? Africa's a continent, my friend. But what would it feel like if you went to like specific countries and then we were just like, well, we don't have that many, let's say like Asian individuals, or we don't have that many like black individuals or what have you. So we just went to a country that did, gave them this technology so that we could utilize this data set to then help ourselves. Would you be against that or for this, even if like perhaps some of these countries like they did have autocratic leaders, they had some form of government that you may deem as fascistic, but this would help us because we get a larger data set that a population of 329 million, perhaps so much of our population is white, we could use that data set to help us out.
Whoever you was talking to didn't follow you.
Okay,
Guarantee
so
it.
like
Well,
let's
see how
say
whoever-
India.
If you were asking me, I'd say
Wiggle. So, excuse me, I meant Ghana or Nigeria, since Africa's too big of a data set. It's too big of a place. It's a continent.
I'm saying like China has one point something
okay.
billion.
I think there's
India's
some pretty
1.6
awesome
billion.
experiments
Like,
you could
lot of
run
data
with
no
facial
black people,
recognition.
but your issues were there's an issue with it using this technology to discriminate against darker skinned individuals. So
Yeah,
I'm
that's
not going
one
to
problem.
go-
That's one problem.
Is to give
That's
those
the problem
darker
that-
individuals less tools, and they only can fight against dirty cops. That's their solution. It's so stupid.
So I think
it's so dumb.
I don't. Here's my thing. I just want facial recognition to be better. That's all I
Yeah,
ever said
this
about
would
it.
make it
I didn't
better.
say that we
So-
shouldn't implement it, and I do like the idea of like of broadening the technology and allowing other people, allowing for other countries to like have some kind of like ability to understand it. But as far as like how that goes, I'm a little worried about totalitarian governments. I am worried about things
Jason,
like
you
that.
literally said ban all of it. You and Wiggle, yo,
I
this
did.
whole
I
entire
said
night.
ban all of it. I never said ban all of it. I said it should be highly regulated. And had you guys listened to me instead of just calling me stupid, you would have heard that. I wanted it to be regulated, and I think it should be strictly regulated. And I think that we need to build up the technology, and it needs to be better. It needs to be better representative of everybody in order for it to function. I never said that it shouldn't be implemented at some level, but not. I just said it needed to be better. And ask Tubi. That's what his whole argument with me was about. Was that I felt like it needed to be better.
Yeah, you said get rid of all of it.
I'm telling you right now,
Jason, you literally said to Tubi, get rid of all of it until it's good enough.
I'm telling you right now, Azzy, a millennia from now, a millennia from now,
I'm not talking about using it.
Care how you tiptoe
talking
and
about using it for policing.
the words.
I'm not talking about using it for policing. I'm talking about using it to understand and accurately
make
it assess facial recognition. Okay, like there's a way to do that. We can have field studies.
It's going to be used for policing.
We can have field studies with people of different cultures, different races, and run the field
getting
studies
the government
with
this stuff.
scientists, not governments. You know, you could do
y'all
it.
be
outside of
quiet
that.
so he can virtue signal. Damn.
It's not.
Jesus
It's going to be
Christ.
used for surveillance. It's going to be used for policing at some form. Maybe not state policing. There's no way. There's no way they're going to. And then Azzy, I don't. First and foremost, the reason I'm against it is because I don't care 200 fucking years from now when America no longer exists. I don't want them to find the scraps of America in some museum and see your face as a representation of what America
My face
looks
is a
like.
beautiful face,
Right?
and they're gonna look
That's
back
why I'm
and they're gonna
against
look back
facial
in awe.
recognition.
As I keep hearing on this panel,
basically what he said.
I don't want you to represent
Basically
America.
what you said.
You don't want me to represent me,
I-
the
could I
average
potentially-
universal Negroid features, the Africana features on me. If anything, they should be using my face.
Wait.
No, I think they should use Prime's face instead. It should be Prime's.
Prime got the same shaped head.
Okay, so like,
It's not
we
too
all-
far off.
Might give it a try.
Prime,
we
at
all
least you're
agree-
wearing
Picture on
gifted.
Prime
We
and
can
he's
use
me.
Could we all agree that like ultimately the goal with like anything that we do, if it affects a group of people negatively, should potentially minimize that effect if it's going to potentially just also make things better for the crime system, right? So I think what anyone in here, it seems like you guys are all on the same page. We want to make this already kind of fucked up system better for anyone who has a chance. And I think that if you have AI, in the absence of it already being a fucked up system, more information and more technology isn't necessarily going to inherently make it so that they use that information to put those people
Always
down.
going to
because
make it better.
because
not always. Not always.
Not
You need
always,
to
right.
amend that
Because-
statement.
Of course, I agree, but I think if we can somehow implement this in a way that the government or just like even some of these already like established very bad judicial branches or like individuals that are running this system, if we establish a way so that this evidence could be used against them, so that potentially if they do tamper with evidence or if they do withhold evidence, they may be accountable 20 years in the future.
I wish we stop being so bad
Y'all
faith.
think that-
I wish we stop being so bad faith and just say that you
Orange
guys
County
don't.
law is real. The Orange
Y'all
County
think that-
law.
I mean,
that
I'll say,
referenced
I just say I
earlier.
don't want
All
fucking
right,
facial
I'm
recognition at all.
motherfucker, and I don't want no fucking cameras watching
Hold on,
me or
wait.
fucking
Y'all-
facial
I
recognizing
knew it,
me. So
Jason.
fuck
See,
you.
Hold on, wait. I have a question. Hey,
This is so
hey,
bad
Jason,
faith, man.
Jason,
The
you better
truth
turn your
I have
comes
webcam
a
out.
off
sheet
then.
longer than your fucking arm.
Mike,
Jason, you better turn
Mike.
your webcam off then if that's the case, because that's
Yeah,
Amazon's
literally
not
Discord
looking at you
uses
right now.
facial I literally said Discord
Guys,
uses facial
obviously, I'm
recognition
fucking
to
memeing,
blur
okay?
the area.
I know.
They-
This
It's like
conversation
Discord.
is the first
Got
time I
it.
heard Gambit
No,
give
I
out
think
like a hearty
This
laugh.
is so
a
bad
pirate's
faith,
laugh.
and I'm just trying to pull the truth out
no,
of
that
y'all.
wasn't me.
Wiggle don't
Personally-
want to be caught for the bad things he does on RuneScape.
Wait,
Jason
first-
doesn't want to be caught
first and
for
foremost,
making
first and
accidents because he
foremost,
keeps,
Azzy, what
he
you
keeps
know about
living a little bit
RuneScape?
tipsy and
Wait, what
passing
you
the
know
stop
about
sign.
games, man?
Oh,
With
hey,
the La
Mike,
Vida
can I
Loca,
ask you a
baby.
question?
Bro.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
And then
no,
second,
not
second of
being
all, second of all,
honest. I just want y'all to be honest.
First and foremost, all right, y'all are so Americentric. I keep trying to open it up, and y'all are just like, but Walmart, my goods.
Hold
No,
on,
I'm
hold
telling
on.
you, if
Hold
we
on.
have the
That's
system,
social
I
code
wanna
in
ask-
America.
you
Okay,
trust
okay.
exploiting
I wanna
the
ask-
social
system.
code to America.
wanna
Okay,
ask
one at a
Mike a
time,
question.
one at a time, one at a time,
All
one at a
right,
time.
Mike. So, question, Mike. You have two options, right? So you're a black person in America, since y'all seem to care so much about black people. That is dope.
Yeah, they don't care.
Maybe it's because it's Thursday, but okay, you're a black person in America,
What?
right? you have two options.
I never used black soap in their life.
You can have a system that has a objective observer that's collecting evidence, and you can attempt to use that in court, or you can have a system that is like, what's the word that I want to use? At least negative against black people, like cops, and you can fight that system alone without some sort of objective viewer. What system do you think black people would want?
Gambit, we're on the same page, and we're not going to speak for black people, but using AI as an
You already
objective
have.
system is the whole conversation. No, I'm not. I'm not advocating. I'm saying the whole conversation
You
is
have to
about how
ask
AI
my
isn't
permission.
good.
You have to ask me,
Wait.
Azzy, Prime, and Gambit for permission.
What the
No, you
fuck?
have to ask every
to
black
sign a
person
contract or
on the
something?
world.
I-
He has to
Okay.
ask
all
every
in
black
favor
person.
say
Can you answer
aye.
my
Let's
question though?
exclude
Answer
Tubi
the
from the
question.
black people.
Can you
Wow.
answer
Oh,
my
my
question?
bad, bro. My bad.
Damn.
Answer the
Fucked up.
question,
No,
man.
no.
Hey,
You
damn,
came off the
Colorism right
panel.
there.
Forgive me. He just came
Colorism.
off the panel. Forgive
Colorism,
me.
Mike,
hardcore
answer for
colorism.
black people
Can
like
Mike
you've been
answer
doing
the
anyway.
question?
Talk
Mike,
for us,
Mike,
man.
Okay.
answer the question.
We're on the same page with like I don't think more information
No,
is
can
going
you
to make
answer
it
the
somehow
question?
worse. So like yes, like I mean, I think that offering
Yes.
this potential balancing act could make it better. It could also make it worse, but I think the positive outweighs the negative is my opinion on it. So yes, instituting AI as a combination with statistics and DNA evidence and stuff like that could potentially make it better, and I think holistically will. So I think I would advocate for it because I
Mike,
personally don't give a
can I
fuck if
ask you
people
a
are
question?
watching me.
Can I ask you a
Yes.
question? What are the
Yes.
positives of facial recognition?
Well, the positives are it's a wider access of information, and I think we haven't necessarily blocked any sort of wide access for information, pretty much ever in like modern America. So if we have this technology and we're actively suppressing this technology, I think that's like probably one of the most un-American things we could possibly do. Because if we want to continue progressing, blocking this
What does
technology or not
America
using
mean
it.
to you? Why'd you use that as an adjective? Why'd you
Oh,
say
be-
this is the
Get
most
outta
un-American
here,
thing?
yeah, that's true because maybe that's not like exactly correct
Because
for
like
like
you
my
can ask
personal
for a
belief of it.
FOIA request, but why does it take long? Like we restrict access to information all the time.
Yeah,
that's-
we
Like,
do.
why are
And
there NDAs?
none of this
Yeah, that's-
technology is being used to make that process any faster or streamlined.
Isn't
Why are there
isn't-
NDAs?
isn't
I
American
get it, we
isn't
should,
a
but it's
typically
like
American thing to make things so secret
because
that no
I'm
one knows about them?
It is
Because
Yeah,
American.
my,
Yeah.
my man,
I'm
I'm in an
speaking for myself
incognito
about it, that's
browser.
why.
It's
It's like, yeah,
to protect
I'm American, I'm
competition.
speaking
Bro,
for myself about it.
It's to
incognito.
protect competition.
Nothing
It's to
not
protect
allowing
financial interests of products. Well, why are there NDAs? Wiggle knows why there are NDAs. Y'all, this conversation is so bad faced.
No, I just
Wait,
what
Wiggle,
I
you
think
do
is
know that.
all.
Wait. You do know that
That face
incognito
should be
does nothing,
banned.
right?
You can
What'd you
still
say?
track incognito.
Incognito does a couple
Incognito
of things.
does practically nothing. It
No,
just
it's just the
doesn't allow
idea
you.
that
it
it's the
does
idea of
nothing.
it's the idea of like the idea of like America is about freedom and the release of
No,
information.
it's
Yeah.
copium.
That's like
It's
that's like
copium.
what that's what
Hide
they would
all
want
the
you to.
nasty stuff you be watching.
Isn't America like number 49 or something
All
on the
right.
freedom
It's
list?
okay when we make fun of our country.
Probably.
When you do it, it makes me feel bad.
Like they're not that high up on the freedom list,
Bro,
actually.
the freedom list is based
pretty
on
low.
opinion.
I'll be real. America is actually pretty ass at like guaranteeing freedom to us.
And,
Which
which is
that.
exactly why, like, that is
Know that.
exactly why I think it's important that we talk about this kind of shit, because like we're this is like another step towards being like less free, right?
Yeah, it's
Get out of here, man.
It's
You know what this
crazy.
sounds
no,
like?
wait.
Yo,
th-
Tubi,
he
have you heard of
makes a good
Dr.
point.
Hattie and Nicole? Go ahead, bro, because you haven't spoken. enough.
Because in the end, as said before, it is a tool that can so easily be used for totalitarianism.
I would also have
It's
to
so
say,
easy to
Yes.
use it in such a way, and this is a problem.
If you don't have a court system, what is
Yeah,
this?
but
What are
this
y'all
is the
doing?
point. That's what I'm trying to say.
you have
Kevin,
the
So
that-
Patriot
if Trump
Act. You
gets
can
another 4 years and
indefinitely
can invoke his
insert
pure
people
fascist
without
regime,
no,
are
no,
you
no,
going to
no,
be
no,
okay
no,
with
no,
it then?
no. You once again, you guys are so Americentric. The point is that maybe you're
Yeah,
okay.
China, right?
Maybe you're okay in the cozy, like comfortable room you have in America. But the idea is if we have this technology, like, and we can then sell this technology, let's say a private company has it, like, what do you think
Keep
this would
bringing up this
mean
argument.
for the rest of the I do, and you guys keep going back to fucking America as if like, well, we're protected. So then what happens about all the
No, I
countries
literally
that
said
we
you can't.
constantly invade?
You can't do anything about that unless you're gonna do some minority report and say, "Hey, we have to get you before you even commit the crime." I literally said you can't do anything. You
No.
gotta wait. You have
No.
to wait until
You could have global action in the form of having some form of regulations
how many
that are held to a
people
higher
of you-
standard. It's about which
Wait,
ones would you
wait.
want, or would you want that?
I mean,
Wait,
we
Wiggle.
We don't let
Wiggle,
everybody have nuclear weapons.
wait, Wiggle just mentioned,
Go,
how
you're
in America
such an
we're
intelligent
protected,
being.
or it's not a problem at this point. But you do have a law where there is infinite internment without trial.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah, dude, but like
Indeed.
here's the idea is that the people on this panel don't believe that. They're gonna argue day in and day and night that we're protected in America. But it's easy for the American to then look at another country with their xenophobia
Because
and be
you,
like, well, Wiggle's right.
because you
In their
haven't
country it's
lived
fucked up.
Well, you're
through.
And they're
talking to
not
Black
protected.
Americans right
And
now.
so it's easier for
you're
you to
black.
make an
Hold on,
argument.
that's
To
wait,
be
that's not the
fair,
argument. Sorry, that's not like
the
sorry. When I say
American
American, I'm
justice
speaking for
system is ass. I know that.
right.
Like,
It's not like an argument to say like America is like perfect in any way. Like we're fucked up in a
Mhm.
lot of things, but I think like the only thing that has actually made America unique is we, at least a majority of people or some revolutionists, try to make it better. And access of technology and this really advanced information systems, which AI is just pushing back on those like actual American values of like progression and like evolution and stuff like that, which has made it such like a bad.
But those are not
impetus
American
to-
values. In fact, like our entire government is
I
like
would
formatted
argue,
so that
like,
like you
freedom
don't have those
from
things.
tyranny is more of an American value than anything you just
No,
said.
it's not. Yeah. It's bullshit. It's
Well,
property rights.
yeah.
America's
That's
for
fair.
property
That is
rights.
also fair.
Well,
You guys are advocating for legislation
I-
against human mismanagement and human error. You're not
Yeah,
advocating
no,
for anything
that's-
against
Hold up,
any
hold
of
up,
the.
hold up.
You guys don't.
I'm arguing
this
against
technology is
giving
perfectly
them the
fine.
power to do so intentionally in an even harsher way.
Right.
Does that
Right.
make
We're
sense?
giving
Increase your
we're
sentence.
I
giving them
think
more
we're
It doesn't
missing
power.
matter how
the
slow
whole.
you say it.
Increase your
Okay,
sentence.
so here's the
As
question.
he's right.
We
No,
sell. So
no,
if
no.
we were to sell
Ben.
weapons,
So
Go ahead.
as he's right though, like you can't. We can put on federal, like or not federal, but
Mhm.
like worldwide restrictions. We can go to the UN. We can put in restrictions for like, the banning of these types of AI systems across the world. That doesn't stop places like Syria.
Wait, why do you guys keep
Yeah.
saying banning? First and foremost,
No,
it's
no, no.
regulation. We regulate.
Regulation is not
we
banned.
regulate.
No, but-
We regulate
So what? It
alcohol.
doesn't-
It's not banned.
That
Right,
doesn't.
right, right.
You don't
Regulation
regulate
is
alcohol on an
arguably
international
word.
scale, though.
Is it a
Okay,
violation
so
of
then,
human rights? Is the
all
argument.
right,
Yeah, it doesn't
It's
matter.
not violation of
Dictators are
human
going to
rights.
do whatever they want with
Oh,
it.
okay. So then everybody gets to have nukes. Like we shouldn't have any form of regulation on it because how are we going to do that? How are we going to prevent any?
No, I'm not stating so much as we don't need regulation. It's just regulation doesn't matter to people who don't give a fuck about it.
Okay, but
Like,
that's
what are we going to do? Are we
Any damage control at all? That's what you're saying.
why have laws? 'Cause
Wiggles
we're gonna
saying
kill people
stop
anyway.
them from
No.
sinning.
We're
This is
talking
what
about
Wiggles saying.
international law.
Stop the sinners from sinning.
America violates
Stop-
international
regulate
law
the
too,
sinners.
guys.
Oh my
Don't
God.
have,
No,
don't
no,
have
no, no.
speeding
Guys,
or
guys.
don't have speeding
Wiggle
laws
and
because
Wiggle
people are gonna
are
speed anyways, right?
advocating
We violate
they're
international
advocating for the
law.
10 Commandments. They're saying regulate the sinner. That's what they're literally
No,
saying. Regulate
what we're saying
the
is
10 Commandments for
is
facial
it-
recognition. That's what they're saying.
We're asking if we think that it is a violation of human rights to allow governments to have this much authority, right, and this much technology and this much power to track
Human
people and to
rights.
harm people.
Well, of
Yeah, I
course,
think
like
no-
we say the same thing about North Korea, and I guarantee you they don't have the infrastructure, like the infrastructure for face recognition like China does. You know what I mean? Like we know what human
They're
rights.
implementing it actually.
And China's
Yeah,
actually had
because China
very
gives it to
bad
them.
problems with their like everybody makes a big deal of the social credit score thing, right? Like that's
But
not
it's
failing
even
in
failing.
China.
implemented
we
yet.
already
It's not
defeated
even
the
an
social-
implemented
I know
system.
revolt. We already
shouldn't talk
defeated
about
the
it.
social credit thing because we already said it's failing because there's not enough enforcement and there's not enough compliance amongst
And there's not
people.
enough ability of the system to
Like,
actually
yeah,
recognize
what
people.
about
boo-hooing.
what about
People
the
are
AI
boo-hooing about the social
national?
credit system.
What about like
Facial
corporations?
hold up. The facial AI recognition could be a tool to make it more successful, could it
Oh,
not be?
no. They use facial recognition right now, and it
They
doesn't
literally-
work.
No, I know.
Yeah.
You guys are
I'm
just
aware.
mad because Tubi would get
be.
he would get a 10,000 point social credit score because he's a a tall PhD who does everything right. I'll probably get a B plus because I'm a public servant, and the rest of you guys, you neats, you not engaged in training or formal education. You guys will
What?
get low credit
I'm
scores
involved in
because you
both.
go to the
But then
Yeah,
you
How
can
much do you
advocate.
pay here? I get
You
you.
can
I make
advocate
10
for a
times what you do.
level.
God, this is
You could advocate for a level of regulation against private companies that are making this. Like if you came after, like in the example, like it was an Israeli company that created like that Pegasus software that was used, and because of international scrutiny, guess what? Israel stepped up and then they stamp down on them themselves. So it's not always going to be a system of like, well, the government's going to be one doing this. It could be a private company. And as we know, sometimes there's companies within the US that don't even give a fuck about the US to that extent because there's larger market in like China.
Yeah.
So they'll advocate against us. So it's like
Yeah.
the idea of governments themselves putting authority down on these private institutions that might be making these products to sell.
care.
And it's like it's just at least giving us something.
Well, it
And to
sounds
say
like
that-
you want to
Or
regulate.
giving
You want to
incentivized
regulate.
tax
You don't want to
structures
regulate.
to those businesses who willingly comply with this.
Thank you. It sounds like you don't want, and it comes back full circle. It sounds like you don't want to regulate the tech. You want to regulate the companies and regulate.
I want to regulate the tech because I think it's too much power
Man,
for a
shut
government
up.
to have.
You don't want to
Regulating the
regulate the
company
tech.
because
You
of the
use your
tech.
Apple iPhone every day. You're on Discord.
I don't have an iPhone.
Okay, wait.
You
What?
use your
It's not an
Android,
iPhone.
who has the same technology,
No,
and
I
they just.
intentionally went out of my way.
is-
Look it up. I bought a Motorola Moto G that does not have facial
You
recognition.
don't have to do this, man. You don't have to explain it. You don't have to.
He's-
So- so-
he
so
really
wait,
did-
He's making
Yo.
assumptions about
Well,
me like
guess
I'm
what?
some fucking
You are a
millennial with an
minority.
iPhone and shit.
You are
Ben.
you are a
Funny.
minority
Ben, I got-
in a consumer consumer
Hey,
market
well,
who is on.
don't assume
They
things
need the
about me.
latest tech.
Yo, don't give him that power. Don't call him a minority, bro. It'll
He
get
is a
to-
minority.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
a minority.
whatever.
He's one of us.
True.
He's a minority
We'll say that.
who went out of his way.
So Wiggle, here's my question to you. So what stops these big not big,
Yeah.
I guess, but these malware manufacturers from going
Yeah.
into like small Pacific islands, like kind of like these
Oh, you
like
mean Norton?
what used to be
Kinda
like
like-
the Twitch gambling people who have
Yeah.
like offshore accounts and stuff. So
Okay.
what's stopping them from going, somebody who wants to buy it from like, I don't know, let's say Saudi Arabia wants to buy this technology and they just go to one of these islands where it's completely unregulated because the government is unable to regulate it, and people with money took the opportunity to go invest and start implementing these this video surveillance technology.
What's stopping
Glad
them?
you
Not
brought
Twitch.
that up,
So
that one, Medic,
what
because
regulations
So here's the thing.
on an
has just
international
started
It's like-
has just started advertising on regular job sites, as I talked about earlier. I posted the
That's what I'm
article from the
saying.
Wall Street Journal.
Yeah.
And legitimate ransomware software companies are actually just posting on regular job sites in other countries, to get their developers, because hey, and I can see
what they're
facial
supposed to
recognition
do.
moving
They're
just
companies.
Yeah.
it's a ransomware company, bro. They're the ones taking over fucking businesses
Hey,
and
hold
ransoming the businesses. They're selling off the
Give
software to
those
people
Indian
to
people a
ransom.
job. They
Can
need
I
the
propose a
money.
hypothetical?
So now
Yo.
we're all humanitarian. We're all humanitarian when it's our lives,
Azzy.
but when the Indian developers who spend all their lives and have no resources, and now they have a potential to have a job, you guys want to take away their jobs now. See, this is what's wrong with Americans.
Azzy, can
Y'all
I
some
propose to you a
flip-flopping hypocrites.
hypothetical?
I just heard the
No,
most
hold on.
fucking argument
tell me you
I've
just
ever
did
heard
that.
on
You
Twitch
said-
this month.
you
That
Now
was
we're taking
brilliant,
away
though.
Indian
Can I
jobs.
propose to you a
Hold
hypothetical?
up.
We're taking
I
away
hope-
Indian
can-
jobs now.
Said,
I
can I
propose-
propose to you a
They're
hypothetical?
always
What's a
taking away
hypothetical?
jobs
Okay,
somewhere.
the hypothetical is, with your so are you aware of like the whole Afghanistan situation right now?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, cool. So let's say, because we can both like agree on that this would also be used for military
It's a
use,
hypothetical.
right? Like for sure.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course it
Okay,
will
cool.
be.
It already is.
So,
Yeah.
if we, as a government, or as a military, decide to implement this on this sort of way, but then
Already
an
did.
opposing government, which is fascist and extremely anti-humanitarian rights,
Okay.
gets a hold of this technology and starts implementing it in very fascistic ways, would you still be okay with it?
I don't think it reduces the harm just because we're not fascist.
I think
what I'm
I
saying
think
is, well, okay, this is the argument I'm coming from is
I know it's arbitrary. It's very arbitrary, the governmental system or politics that
I'm
that these
taking a
countries are.
worldwide view at this, and I'm saying that I believe, through my calculation, and you don't have to agree with the calculation, that's fine.
I won't.
But my calculation is, that's fine, is that I think AI implemented on a worldwide scale to every country that could either afford to make it themselves afford to buy it from the US because we've armed terrorists before. You don't think we
And
do
we
it
will
again?
continue to do so.
Yeah, uh-huh.
Yeah.
You know,
Or
white people in
companies
America.
that we go to war with, and let's say we leave behind a ton of like stuff, like we did in Afghanistan. We left behind millions of weapons for them just to have. You don't think that same thing could happen to AI? So my take
No,
is
it will.
a worldwide use of facial recognition would be a net harm to autonomy rather than a net gain to autonomy. I'll grant you,
Thank you.
in the best scenario
Get out of here,
possible,
because you know what?
in the
You
best
can use the
scenario
same argument.
possible,
You can use
America
this.
gains autonomy.
This
In the best possible argument, Americans maybe gain autonomy.
American.
But even in your best case scenario, more people get hurt by this worldwide than the people that benefit in America when we already have a justice system that I have a ton of issues with, right?
Yeah, I know.
I don't think it would make it that much better. Like, it might improve it a little bit. I
Ben,
agree.
Do you
but I
realize those
don't
people
think
from
you're
America?
helping.
Do you realize those people from America that can develop this code? I mean, it's also like they develop it everywhere. Like we've talked
They
about.
do it all
Yeah.
the time. They've been.
Yeah.
I love the arbitrary argument. I just
They're
indulged
literally
him
just going to go
to
somewhere else.
say,
Who's going to pay them? Why would they not go to some fascist country that's going to pay them $100 million to
Thank
develop this
you.
code?
That's
They would go
that's
somewhere else.
why
That's
would
not
the
only-
poor?
not only
That's
that,
what I'm
that's
saying.
not only
You
that.
guys are anti-Indian jobs. That's what it sounds like.
Not only
But-
that, I mean, why would they need to sell facial recognition technology while for most countries
They're
it
for
is
profit.
already,
Because they're
That's what
for
it sounds
profit. Like,
you know, the rest of the technology is already advanced enough that they would be able to develop it themselves.
Well, it's like expediting the
because-
process. I mean,
because-
places that are rich in oil money don't necessarily have like a very strong like.
this is the
I don't know,
nature
like
of
a
markets, man. If you don't have,
No,
something,
they
you're gonna
just have,
pay
you
somebody
know,
that
the
has it.
disparity between poor and riches in most of those countries.
You could be
just,
rich
you know,
and still
very
not
big.
have that infrastructure. You could be rich and still not have like a sufficient market in your own country for like
Yeah.
facial recognition
Sure.
software.
Yeah, that's true.
But,
Do you trade?
but the government, or at least some people in most third world countries, there is a very small percentage that has a lot of money.
I
They
would
will
argue
That's the
have
whole
the
world.
technology.
That isn't. They're just.
Hold up.
This.
I would
global
argue
stuff,
that
the whole
a
world.
fascist dictator is much more likely to want to use the government money to implement the system than like a
Yes.
democratic.
What are you talking about? No, that's
democratically
not
elected
true at
leader.
all. Because we're literally using
I
it.
do.
That's
We're,
definitely true.
we're literally using
That's
it to
definitely
bomb.
true.
We're literally using it in the military to bomb like suspected terrorists without using to keep.
Suspected terrorists? You mean brown
Wait,
people?
wait, wait,
who
wait,
are
wait.
mostly
First
innocent?
and
Yeah.
foremost, Azzy.
So-
First
so
and
yeah,
foremost,
so
Azzy.
the US
Hold on,
uses it to bomb
don't
brown
muddle my
people.
words.
That
Don't
is-
muddle my words.
Suspected
You
No,
mean
but
terrorists.
it
brown
is
people.
true.
I didn't say
it's
brown.
true.
I'm not just talking about any brown people because you know they could be.
Not any
It's
brown
not like you're
people,
going out in
just the
Brazil
ones
and
that
hitting
we think
people.
are terrorists. Like, you know, the people who got bombed last month for deploying water to the Palestinians. Yeah, those people, the suspected terrorists.
I have
Okay.
a question. I mean, you guys had a war on drugs. You had a war on terror. When are
Yeah.
you going to have a war on universal healthcare?
Oh, it's already on, man.
Is
it's
this
just
fun?
not
Oh, there has
fluid.
been a war
No.
on
Is this-
universal
What are we
health
talking
care,
about?
just
Prime
not a
already
war
does
for universal health care.
Called
Yo, that
Medicare
Let's
window
get-
is
No, you have a
awfully
war.
far.
You need a war on
Anyways.
universal healthcare because the war on drugs brought more drugs. The war on terror
Well,
actually
you're
brought
right,
more terrorists.
actually. Nah, he's right.
So-
Yeah,
He's
maybe you're
based.
right. We do need a war
Hey.
on socialized medicine in the U.S.
Hey.
I agree.
Yeah.
We need a war on Medicare for all because we'll lose that one too. That'll be perfect for me.
Based.
I'll get exactly
Yeah,
what
so
I want.
then suddenly everyone has healthcare. I mean, I don't see that that's necessarily a bad thing.
So wait, and just to be clear,
But you can go
so
to the doctor and not go bankrupt. I mean,
Hey, you're not going to get an
Wiggle.
argument for me.
did I better,
See, this is what you
like-
get. This is what you get, Ben. You start talking
Yeah,
badly
I
about
know.
America, and you get this guy to start doing
I
it
know,
too. This is what I mean.
right?
You can't let them know.
Hey,
you can't let them know.
Can't let them know that we
Gotta keep
kill
those
innocent
fights
people in
internal.
Palestine all the
You
time.
guys
Right?
act like America doesn't use facial
Oh.
recognition, like in military,
Hey,
in
bro.
I'm
government.
not saying it doesn't.
No,
I'm
let's-
not saying it doesn't. I'm saying
Let-
expanding the
Arbitrary.
usage of it
We-
and expanding the
but-
database it has.
Okay,
Nonsense.
let's
Nonsense.
get
Shut up.
back on
Shut up.
topic.